Good evening, everybody. I'd like to invite everybody to the, thank you for attending the regular City Council meeting for June 17th. I'd like to ask everybody that can to stand as we start every meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance, and then if you would remain standing for a moment after that. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you have a seat, this past week we lost another great Bowie resident, Margaret Herman, who's been a long-time resident of Bowie. She's been on the Arts Committee since 2007, and she's been an active member of this committee. She's a military family, a really great, warm, charming person. So if you could join me and just take a moment of silence and respect for her service. Thank you. Any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments? Dr. Trout.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Under new business, item D, I have a motion that I want to make for the July 1st meeting.
Okay. No problem. Anything else? All right. I'm going to hear no objection here. I want to make one minor change in the agenda tonight. We've invited our colleagues from the Washington Council of Governments, and I kind of suggested we would get them out at an early hour because they have a couple of events to go to tonight. So I'm going to move them up ahead of citizen participation because it looks like that's going to take a few minutes. So, Mr. City Manager, you want to introduce our guest?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, City Council, and residents of Bowie, we have Mr. Chuck Peen, who is the Chief Administrative Officer of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, here to make a presentation and present an overview of COG's programs and resources to you and our residents. Thank you. Chuck.
Welcome, sir. Always glad to have you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I know you have a full slate tonight. They say a picture paints 1,000 words, so I have a short video that'll save me several minutes of my presentation if you'll indulge. Crossing my fingers that, there we go. 60 years ago, the governments of the region came together to form COG, and we're still meeting today. The future of the region is our business, and collaboration is how we get there.
The Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments is a regional body that convenes elected officials from all over the Washington metropolitan area.
We all call it affectionately in this region COG. And it, as a Council of Governments, is a facilitator of regional opportunity.
I think if I were to try to describe COG in one word, it would be unifying.
Yes, COG is a forum for discussion, but I think we're also a forum for regional problem solving. Coming through our doors are the police chiefs, the fire chiefs, the housing directors, transportation experts, environmental experts, making their cities and counties better and making the region a better place.
COG has something for everyone. If it's transportation, if it's environmental, if it's emergency preparedness and public safety, all of those things are things that COG addresses.
We're a very dynamic region, and that's what makes us a great place to live and work.
And one of our major regional challenges is planning how we're going to accommodate an additional 1.5 billion people. And that is part of all of our work.
It's all about infrastructure. Your economy is based on how people get from place to place to trade goods and services.
The Transportation Planning Board, TPB, at COG has really been at the center of the region's efforts at improving transportation, promoting transportation efficiency.
COG staff are experts in their field. They're urban planners and civil engineers, even biologists and emergency management professionals.
It has been an invaluable opportunity for the city of Rockville. We have been able to access research, data, expertise, have conversations that we wouldn't have just on our own.
Whether you're the District of Columbia, you're Loudoun County, or Charles County, everyone has a seat at the table.
Leading political figures in each of our jurisdictions are here on the COG board. And so if you want to get something done, this is where you get things done.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your time this evening. Just a little bit of overview about the council of governments and some of the connections that we have with the city of Bowie. This is the COG footprint, so it's 4 counties in Maryland: Frederick, Montgomery, Prince George's, Charles County, the jurisdictions included within those counties, and 5 major jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, plus the District of Columbia. We've been around since 1957. This is about 5.6 million people in this footprint and about 3,500 square miles. And when we say members of COG, we both mean the jurisdiction, the city of Bowie, as well as all the elected officials as members of COG. About 1,000 to 1,500 people come through our doors every month. We probably have 2 or 3 different meetings a day. It would be the police chiefs in the morning, it would be the fire chiefs in the afternoon. The next day would be all the housing directors. The next day would be all the planning directors, recycling committee, water utilities, etc. Coming to COG to share best practices, but also coming together for collaboration and asking the question, what can we be doing better together than we can be doing alone? Structurally, COG Board of Directors is the overarching board. We also have the region's MPO, or Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's called TPB, or Transportation Planning Board, and the Metropolitan Washington Air Quality Committee, which was set up by the 2 governors and the mayor a couple of decades ago to monitor air quality in the region. And when we say policy or technical committees, these are appointed officials. And at the top of the food chain of all the appointed officials are the Chief Administrative Officers Committee, the city county managers. We have about 130 staff. Our largest area is transportation planning. Second is environmental services. Third is community planning and services, which includes housing, population forecasting, that sort of thing. And then fourth is homeland security and public safety services, collaboration in that area, such as mutual aid agreements between police departments, fire departments, and the like. As I mentioned, we're the home to the region's MPO. Every jurisdiction in the country that has over 50,000 people must have an MPO. Part of the carrots that bind a region together through an MPO is that for any jurisdiction to receive federal funding for any transportation project, it needs to be part of that region's MPO's plan. And we do a 25-year plan, including forecasts, and we also do a 6-year transportation improvement program that I'll talk about in just a moment. One of the main issues that we're dealing with in the region is housing affordability, and not just affordable housing at one income band, but housing affordability across several income bands, what we might call the missing middle. What we forecasted is that in the future we'll have up to 100,000 unit shortfall in the region. That sounds like a lot. We actually have about a 40,000 unit shortfall in the region. That also sounds like a lot. But when you consider the scale of our region, which is the 6th biggest in terms of gross regional product and the 7th biggest population-wise, we already have about 2.1 million housing units on the ground. So it puts in perspective, if we have a deficit of 40,000 or 100,000 units, we still need to work on it, and that's part of cracking the code of making housing affordable at all income and cost levels. We're also looking to make sure that the housing of the future is put on the infrastructure that we have of today and the infrastructure that we'll plan in the future. So that would include the Purple Line, Silver Line Part 2, and as Montgomery County, Fairfax, et cetera, look at bus rapid transit, that will be a mode of the future, and that's where we can put housing and more dense housing, mixed use development. One of the other initiatives that will be easing into the future is a collaboration with the Board of Trade to create a smart region movement, so that we're not just focusing on smart city, the city of Bowie or the District of Columbia, but that Prince George's, Montgomery, Fairfax, the district can be adopting similar technologies. There's an economy of scale in procuring the digital infrastructure that we'll need for the future, and also to facilitate collaboration. So you'll hear more about that in our collaboration with the Board of Trade and the consortium universities in the year to come. A little bit about COG's connection with Bowie. I mentioned the Transportation Improvement Program. That's a 6-year program. And as part of the upcoming TIP, there's a project to widen 197 from Kent Hill Drive to Maryland 450. And this will receive $8.3 billion in funding. Also a project to widen 450 from Stony Brook Drive to Maryland 3, and that will receive $235,000 in funding. We also administer some federal grants for assistance for people to get to jobs or to get to medical appointments. This is called the Enhanced Mobility Program. And Prince George's County has received funding for several programs which also serve the city of Bowie. One example is the ARC of Prince George's County received over $700,000 for 3 different grants for wheelchair accessible vehicles to help transport individuals with disabilities. Also, Sunrise of Maryland received over $145,000 to improve disability access to their building, which houses its adult day training program. We facilitate a number of collaborations throughout the region. You've heard of Street Smart, promoting bicycle and pedestrian safety. So when we do these regional campaigns, we're one media market. COG is often the place where we do that on behalf of the region in collaboration with the jurisdictions. COG also operates the Commuter Connections program. You often hear blurbs about on WTOP about commuter connections. So this is an opportunity for people, if they want to ride share, if they want to find somebody in their neighborhood going to the same place of work or vice versa, they can contact Commuter Connections and become part of that program. If someone is asking, well, if I sign up for that van pool, but I have an emergency, how will that be handled? And that's the guaranteed ride home. So we issue vouchers for taxis or opportunities to come home in case a child is sick or some kind of emergency. So guaranteed ride home is part of our overall regional commuter connections program. In the environmental arena, just like in public safety, we're often working with jurisdictions and the media to promote recycling, protect your pipes, Take Back Medication Day, and the Tap It program, which enables people to learn about where they can get free water to fill up their water bottles. Turning to collaboration in public safety, we operate what's called the RICS, Regional Incident Coordination and Communication System. So this is situational awareness throughout the region on emergencies. It could be transportation incidents, and 11 Bowie officials are registered to receive these messages, which might be email, text, or other means. We often have convening over the phone, and during the winter months particularly, we have snow calls that might be at 9 p.m. or even at 3 a.m. So we'll have on the line National Weather Service, OPM, so that everyone will get exact information, most up to date with MDOT, DDOT, VDOT, WMATA, all on the phone at the same time, and that will inform opening and closing decisions of both the federal government and the localities. There's opportunities to save money through COG. I think Bowie participates in the gasoline purchasing program, which saves about $15,000 for the city annually. In the diesel fuel program, saving about $12,000 annually. And in procurement of road salt, saving about $5,000 of what otherwise would be a separate purchase by the city. We also have open group buys, consortium purchases on water and wastewater treatment chemicals, and a half dozen or so that are in the pipeline that I'd be happy to follow up with any of you and your city manager on these details. This is part of an economy of scale and our collaboration with the Baltimore COG, in that we're able to buy in bulk through all the counties of our region and the Baltimore area. So happy to answer questions, happy to discuss anything of regional concern or specifics about COG from my presentation or other issues. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time tonight.
Well, thank you, sir. Any brief questions for our guests? Well, thank you, sir, and please give our regards to the rest of COG management. I always like to deal with an agency I can spell.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
sir. Appreciate your visit. All right, we'll go back to citizen participation. Madam Clerk. All right, I'm going to call the name, and then I'm going to call the person next in line so we can kind of move it. Given that there are going to be a number of people who want to speak, I would ask that you keep your comments to 3 or 4 minutes. And if the speaker in front of you, if you share the sentiments of the speaker in front of you or somebody that's spoken for, ditto is an acceptable thing as well. All right, we'll start off with Lisa Couture. Welcome, ma'am. And here's another. I know we all love each other, but it takes. I lose time when we do that. Okay. Welcome.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, council members, and staff who we've met before. My name is Lisa St. Louis Couture, and you've seen me speak many times in support of the Bowie Ice Arena. You've heard my connection to the rink and why it means so much to me. We don't need that tonight. I'm going to speak from my mind, not just my heart. I wanted to examine what is your role. What are you supposed to be focused on when making imperative decisions? Is it legacy, re-election, majority rule? I reviewed definitions of elected government officials. The two key points in any of these definitions I found were to serve the community's needs and to govern the people. Most importantly, the politician is to act in the best interest of its city. Allowing a referendum is merely passing the buck and avoiding your responsibility when it comes to this ice arena. You cannot allow a very small percentage of the voters, an average of 15% that'll come out, to decide the fate for thousands of people that when they do not know the history, the facts, or the importance of the ice arena as a proven amenity in the city of Bowie. It is your job as an elected official to act in a manner that is best for the people. They elected you to make decisions in the interest of making the city of Bowie as positive, lucrative, and safe as it can be. They trusted you to make those decisions. You were not elected to be told what to do based on whether you will be reelected or on the loudest leader yelling. That is the most cowardly excuse I have heard. We have all heard the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting a different result. This is the situation we are in, and it is absolute insanity. The issue of the ice arena has been on the table since 1988. In 1989, the Washington Capitals front office supported funding this project. I was 10 years old. Then in 1999, Washington Capitals were passed over to choose a feasibility study. In 1994, the rink was finally enclosed. In 1996, renovations to the locker rooms were complete. Fast forward almost 30 years since this has been first brought up. Decisions were finally made to research. It was done. It was found in September of 2017 that this current rink would cost almost $22 million to renovate as it was. We've 2 years beyond that. Those issues have only worsened, so experts created plans. Financial concerns were evaluated. Most importantly, the vote was complete. The land was bought. There is no reason to repeat this process again. The ice arena went without major improvements because the new arena was coming. Now you want to start over again, and that is the definition of insanity. There is no time. Each day the rink is closer to failure, unlike any other amenity in this city. This is a here today, gone tomorrow. Then you'll be facing an empty building in disrepair across from a beautiful park. Hopefully not a venue for crime at that point. We have one sheet of ice versus many courts and many other amenities in this city. We cannot develop and teach people a lifelong skill without ice. We can't bring an immense amount of money to this city without ice. We are a wonderful, proven return on investment. 2 sheets of ice does not double the cost of operating by any means. However, it does increase the capability to make money. Other amenities lose money, rinks make money. This is very simple. Feasibility studies have been completed here and abroad that show that a bubble will not work in this area for ice. It is too darn hot. The difference in cost for 1 sheet versus 2 is minimal. Utilize the old arena to satisfy some of these other amenities. It is your responsibility to prioritize with what you have and what you can do. The research was done showing that much needed 2-sheet ice arena would not raise taxes. Courts were promised, and April 18 is next on the list. The city of Bowie does not have time to wait and entertain this court argument any longer. It is simply not their turn for improvements.
We'll have to ask you to wrap up.
Yep. The 2 issues are separate, and one should not have any bearing on the other.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, next speaker is Will Berkeley, and will be followed by Shani Bagley. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Will Durkee. I'm a Bowie resident. I registered this afternoon to speak today about the Bowie Ice Rink. I'll apologize in advance. This is my first time ever speaking publicly in any kind of forum like this, so I'm going to just go through my rough, unpolished thoughts here, if you don't mind. And I also hope this shows what an impact this topic has on your constituents. It activates them on something that really touches near and dear to their heart. Quick background on me. I grew up playing hockey at Bowie from age 11 to 18. I gave up playing hockey to go to a military school, Virginia Military Institute. They didn't have a team. 2 years after that, I started their first college club team, and it still exists today. So in terms of like legacy, and there's other aspects of benefits that go on well beyond what you see here in Bowie. I still play adult hockey. I do coaching on the side, skills development, power skating, all those things. My story about Bowie is really one day that I can sum up my experience. I was a very skinny, shy band nerd of a kid growing up, and started playing hockey when I was 11. After 3 years of playing in the recreational leagues, I was going to move up to an older age group, and I decided to try out for my first travel team tryouts. This new older age group also meant the introduction of full contact hockey. You can imagine the type of change that would have been year over year. One thing you may not already know about ice hockey is that it's very unforgiving. You cannot call timeout in the middle of play. You cannot run out of bounds to avoid contact. You also cannot rely on individual skill to be successful. Also, I would say in almost more than any other sport, you have a defensive and offensive responsibility on all sides of the ice, and you're held accountable. Your teammates rely on you on both ends of the ice. Back to my tryouts, I really don't remember much about the actual tryouts, the couple of days of trying out, but I do remember sitting at home the day after, waiting literally for the phone to ring. Coach Quater, who was coaching with Lisa's father, Coach Ken St. Louis, calls me up and he tells him I made the team. And he says it's going to be a huge challenge to adapt and improve over the years, over the next couple months. So let's just say it was a rough couple months. I think the team called me the crash dummy for a while. It was a different time, humor. But, that was how I grew. It was the first challenge I've ever had as, 13, 14-year-old kid. My first actual big challenge to adapt, and again, in a very unforgiving environment. But through the coaches' help and the teammates, they helped me. I learned to play better, smarter, safer. And since then I grew as not just a hockey player, but as a young person. And these are some of the life lessons that I think are constantly overlooked when we think about, just a facility and the budgets and those things. If you haven't noticed, this ice rink topic is getting a little bit more attention. The Capital Gazette's been writing a couple articles. NBC4 Washington's been mentioning it. The Washington Capitals have been retweeting. And the local hockey and figure skating communities between Maryland, DC, Virginia are all abuzz about this, simply because the way the past 2 weeks have played out. Now, again,
wrap up.
Yes, sir. I'm very new to this, but one can see that 2 years ago we approved moving forward with a new facility. Last year, we invested $3 million in planning and design. Everything looked good, but why did we change things just 2 weeks ago? The public kind of has to wonder why. I'll skip the last part, sir, if I may, just to get to the final point. Our skating and hockey clubs have represented this city nationally for decades, traveling abroad and hosting international competitions. Hundreds of people around the world now know Bowie and can even pronounce it correctly because of our hockey and our skating programs. They've been here. I've heard the argument that, the rink might not just support, or won't only support locals' kids. Well, these families come into town. They eat, they stay at our hotels, they eat at our restaurants. They're spending their money in Bowie. It does support the local economy. And finally, on a personal note, local children do need the option to grow, or more options to grow, learn life lessons in a positive and reinforced environment. They need to learn basic skills of work ethic, teamwork, and accountability. In my opinion, on the aggregate, these skills are fading in frequency. It would be I would not be the man I am today without this club and this experience. It would be such a shame if you deprive thousands of future children of this opportunity. Thank you,
sir. Appreciate your time. Chair David. And Chair, we call by Lisa Young. Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'm here to express my frustration and disappointment at the current situation with the ice rink. My name is Shanae Bagley, and I'm here with my daughter, Alexandra Bagley. And we live in the city of Bowie. I'm a resident of the city of Bowie. I live in District 3. I live in the old stage section on Heatherstone Drive. I don't know how many ways I can say this. I just want to get across the point that there are people who live in the city of Bowie who use the ice rink multiple times a week. We would be there right now if it was an option for us in May and June. So it's so frustrating and disappointing that here we are again. This city had, first let me say ditto, and ditto. Okay. This city has spent significant time and money on this project already. The city has done its due diligence. We've explored renovating the existing rink. The estimate that was given in the weekly agenda, council agenda, was $22 million just to renovate. The bid that you all passed on 2 weeks ago came in under that number. This just does not make sense to me. We have explored alternative building types. We have explored private-public partnerships. We've talked to Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning. We have already done all of these things. We voted to move forward with 2 sheets of ice. You voted to move forward with 2 sheets of ice. We went out and put that project out for bid. When does it end? Enough is enough. It's time to act. It's time to move forward. It's time to stop playing politics and actually do the work that's required. We have done all of the work that is necessary. The city staff and manager has made recommendations, and we should accept those recommendations and move forward. If you don't take action, it's entirely possible that the Bowie Ice Rink will close in the near future. Do not let the Bowie Ice Rink close on your watch. Please, I just ask you, please reconsider your decision and follow the recommendations of our city manager and staff and vote to approve the bid to build the ice rink.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you coming. Mr. Jones, and be followed by Lori Jones. Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Lena Eunice, longtime resident of Bowie. Friends, mayor, councilmen, lend me your ears. I came not to bury the ice rink, I came to defend it. The evil of inaction that men do often live after them. A good plan, in fact, many a good plan, is often interred in a file like this one, or in the internet. So the ice rink may follow that destiny, may follow that fate, if you decide to forego constructive action tonight. Noble councilmen here in attendance have stated repeatedly that they cannot vote for the two-sheet ice rink, because the plan is too ambitious, even that it has been approved by this council in years past. That the construction of a new arena does not serve Bowie residents, although the Bowie Ice Arena has been an integral presence in our community for almost 50 years. If the council present here tonight were to ignore once again the studies highlighting the virtues of this project, the projected revenues for the city, the funds invested in these assessments, the numerous council meetings where plans supporting the rink were approved and voted on by these very members, if the council present here tonight were to do so again, all these efforts over the years would have been in vain. If the council present here tonight were to ignore the heartfelt pleas from our ice skating and hockey families, our pleas would have fallen on deaf ears once again. What message are we sending to our children? So I come to address the city council meeting once again in the hope that our esteemed council members will see the light and proceed with the construction of the two-sheet ice arena that has been voted on affirmatively in years past, and seriously consider a project to construct a basketball facility in the near future. Deferring the two-sheet ice arena construction project will make any future construction even more costly. Deferring the two-sheet ice arena under the guise of a popular referendum will only guarantee its demise. And if that is your choice, we will be burying this project tonight. If you are going to drive a stake through the heart of the ice rink community, be clear about it. State it clearly and own it. Own it now. Own it here tonight. In the time that I have remaining, I would like to speak directly to our youth. Sorry, I'm giving you my back, but I'm speaking to you. Children, teenagers, future adults, please be engaged in your community, be it through sports or through community service, through acts of kindness, and yes, through hard work. Fight for what you believe in. Only you can do it. Only you can influence others positively to believe in your cause. Only you can engage the community. Only you can engage your peers. You have that responsibility, and when you are of age, I urge you to actively participate in the electoral process and vote. Don't take this right lightly. Only you can elect officials that will share your values, your views, and above all, hold them accountable for what they do. Hold them accountable for their actions. You will become the leaders of the future. We believe in you. We love you. We need you. Thank you for the time.
Roy Jones. He's going to be followed by Carlos Del Castillo. And she has a troop movement coming up. And you are the only one speaking, correct? Yes. The answer is yes. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go on.
First of all, ditto, 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 ditto. Mine is very short and sweet, so. Good evening. My name is Lori Jones, and I'm the president of Bowie Hockey Club. We are a nonprofit youth ice hockey club operating at the Bowie Ice Arena since 1971. We are attending this council meeting tonight to request you reconsider your decision to end the Bowie Ice Arena project. This rink is a serious part of our lives. Our children and families consider our rink friends and staff as family. We know it's expensive, but the current facility built in the 1970s is on borrowed time. Let's work together. This defines our city and makes us the envy of the region. We are ice families, but we are also Bowie families. We support the idea of working to get the Bowie Ice Arena issue resolved and working with Indoor Courts Group to support their needs. When we work together, both groups grow, and that is what makes Bowie so special. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your time. And your friend. Carlos, welcome, sir. And he'll be followed by Felicia Snyder. Welcome, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, I come here to speak in favor of the City Ice Arena, and I would say that I came here very disappointed by the actions of this City Council, but after hearing the story that Lisa Couture told about the process, I am just dismayed. This is just bad governance, okay? Very, very bad governance. So I would like to address 3 issues very quickly. First of all, for some reason, the Ice Arena has recently been conflagrated with basketball courts. I do not understand that. We have a relatively new basketball facility that has 3 courts, plus we have many basketball courts throughout the city. I suspect that almost every school has at least 1 basketball court. We have baseball fields, we have softball fields, we have tennis courts, football fields, and yet we have one old, decrepit ice rink that is falling apart. So I am very confused. Where is the conflagration? Where is the equivalency in requirements? Where is the equivalency in needs? It doesn't exist. The second issue I want to bring very quickly is that based on communications I have had with City Council members and others, you're holding the Ice Arena to a higher financial standard than any other facilities. Government is not meant to make money. Sport facilities are not meant to make money. Yet, our ice rink, which is very old and very energy inefficient, I understand that it comes close to covering its cost. No other facility can do that. Definitely not a baseball field, definitely not a basketball field. So what are you guys doing? And the projections for the new facility, which is going to be energy efficient, are that at least it's going to break even, likely going to make money. So you need to stop, bringing up those red herrings. They're red herrings. They're sophisticated, smart people. We don't buy it, okay? Finally, this is very important. I have heard from some of you that this is a hard decision because you don't have a majority. Well, guess what? This is a representative democracy. Split decisions are the norm, not the exception. We make very hard decisions all the time, decisions that are more important, more expensive than an ice rink. The decisions are made and they endure the test of time. You need to stop dithering. Putting this on a referendum is a monumental abdication of your responsibilities as elected officials. You were put here to make decisions. If you do not agree with the rink, just say so, okay? It's quite simple. We need to move forward. We have a very nice plan. We have spent a lot of money, my money, tax dollars. You need to stop dithering and reach a decision and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Alicia Snyder. And Mr. Snyder be followed by Kara Mueller. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I'd first like to speak for my daughter who is not able to be here. My name is Abigail Snyder. I was the face plastered on your Bowie Blade news this past week. I'm the founder of the hashtag Bowie Needs Ice Facebook group, the starter of the petition for the 2 sheets, a resident of District 1, a skater turned coach because of the facility in our beloved city. And I want to thank all of the councilmen, Mayor Fred, and guests for listening to my words this evening, even though I cannot be present. This isn't our first time stuck in this stalemate, and unfortunately, I fear it won't be our last, because the bottom line here is as much as the city of Bowie needs this council to move forward on its commitment to ICE, there is an entire population of people who are just as passionate as we are about their needs for courts, and they feel mistreated. They feel it's unfair that we're getting something, and they aren't. And I can't say I blame them, because quite honestly, if I was someone who was a basketball kid turned coach, I would probably feel the same way. Why did they get something that I don't get? And I sympathize, and I want you to know that as much as you feel that the skating community is attacking you by saying we want our 2 sheets, what we're really saying is we are in desperate need for a new facility. But once we know we aren't losing our home away from home, we're on your side as well. I think this is where the disconnect comes in. We aren't pro-ICE, anti-courts. We are pro making sure we don't wind up without an ice rink for our kids to skate in, but also pro your community having the facilities it needs as well. I've spent a lot of time this week talking with our council members and trying to figure out what we can do to move forward from this rut we seem to have gotten ourselves in. Each time we take 2 steps forward and 1 big jump back, it seems the ICE versus courts battle begins all over again, when in reality we need to be supporting each other. What are we teaching our children by taking an eye for an eye? By standing up at these council meetings and yelling back and forth across the room at each other? We instead need to use our ability to lead by example, to work together for a solution. I want to thank Mayor Fred and each council member who I've had the opportunity to speak with over the past week and a half for sharing their opinions and understanding that the bottom line is our skating community, myself wholeheartedly included, is scared of completely losing our home. Going forward, I ask that whatever comes out of tonight, as I'm not present to witness it, we come to a solution for the ice arena that also includes a committed promise to the court users that by a certain date, whatever you choose, they will have the research done and a plan set to be voted upon for them to have their project move forward. I know there's a meeting in July for the courts, so if that means you commit to them that by their July meeting you will have a plan of what you can do for them, all the better. The only way the city as a whole, these user groups, our children, and the council are going to be able to move forward from this is if both sides feel their voices are being heard. Let's face the reality here. Though your qualms as councilmen may have to do with money, raising taxes, they really have to do with the pressure you're receiving from both sides and both user groups. Please understand that though we may not be the kindest at times, it is because we are passionate about what we have invested our lives in. I hope you can understand our passion and help us move forward. And then as for me, Felicia Snyder, District 1, I think we have been at this way too long. Amenities in Bowie are there to serve the whole of our community, whether the whole community chooses to use the facilities or not. Our city amenities bring outside city people to our city to shop, to use our hotels, to eat in our restaurants, and hopefully to come to love Bowie and perhaps even choose to move here. I believe we must look at each amenity for its own merit. Is it used? Does it offer something to our community? And of course, what is the average cost per dollar? Because that's the business you all are in. That being said, my understanding, if we take the merits of the ice arena by itself, right now the facility only open for 10 months a year, the ice arena brings in 80 cents on the dollar. With a 2-sheet facility, the ice arena would be open all year with additional funds going toward the cost per dollar, and with the second sheet there would be more availability for Learn to Skate, the ISI figure skating team, the Bowie hockey team, public sessions, the Bowie high school hockey team, and even a chance to reach out to Bowie State University to offer skating lessons or create a team. I believe the 2 sheets would ultimately make money for the city, not to mention the money brought into the city through tournaments and competitions. Guests to our city would use our hotels, our restaurants, and our shopping areas. I ask you once again, please bring this up for reconsideration tonight and vote in favor for the already budgeted 2-sheet facility. Thank you.
I don't want to have to send you guys to the principal's office now, okay? Karen.
I'm Kara Mueller. I am not a Bowie resident. I'm not even a Maryland resident, but I have spent every Saturday for the past 3 years driving up to Bowie at about 5:30 in the morning and spending the whole day there basically till about 2 usually. Spending money at the rink, obviously, spending money at Bowie Town Center, going shopping, eating lunch, all of that. And I'm not gonna be able to do that anymore because I'm going to college, but I want every kid to have that opportunity. And the fact that I would drive an hour and a half altogether to go to this rink when I have rinks near me says, I think, a lot about the Bowie community and about the Bowie rink. And the ISI team has given me and lots of other kids and teenagers the opportunity to go to national and international competitions, and I personally won the ISI scholarship, which was given to only 3 people this year. My skating has really taken off, and I pride myself very, very much on it. And the Bowie rink and community and coaches have helped me immensely in that, and I will always be thankful for it. There are several points to why Bowie needs a facility, and obviously a new facility will make money that's not being brought in yet, because 2 sheets are always obviously better than 1. You can have twice the number of people skating at once. And if Bowie doesn't make that kind of a rink, somebody else will around here. Piney and Odenton has already built the 2nd sheet, yes. And rinks are popping up all around the metropolitan area. And if Bowie doesn't bring in the money from this 2-sheet facility, some other city or township or county near Bowie will. Because there are skaters, obviously, there are skaters and hockey players who will go somewhere. And the skaters who are skating now, their younger siblings will, and their kids will. And you're not gonna get rid of these skaters, obviously. They're a big part of the community. They don't have anywhere but ice to do their sport. Meanwhile, basketball players, baseball players, anywhere there's grass and dirt or a court or anything, they can do that. But we need the ice to be able to skate, hence the Bowie needs ice and everything.
I have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay. So a new facility is obviously needed. We can't keep going with the old facility. And a new facility will do what an old facility couldn't and increase the number of skaters rather than lowering it based on limited ice time.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your time. Next speaker is Terry Bridges, and Mrs. Bridges will be followed by Untitled Chapter. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good evening. A feasibility study was conducted in 2013 with 622 residents and 290 non-residents, indicating the greatest recreational need for the city. Swimming was first, basketball was second, soccer was third, ice skating was fourth, and hockey was seventh. As a basketball commissioner, of course, I'm advocating for more hardwood floors, but I am also an advocate of just children. 2 years ago, June of 2017, the city staff presented information to the City Council with 8 recommendations for the indoor sports facility. Councilmember Steve asked to table the discussion on the indoor sports facility until the September's council meeting and charged city staff to gather more information on the cost to repair or improve the current ice arena or to construct one next to the existing one. In September of 2017, the city staff returned and presented to the City Council with that information and made a recommendation to construct 3 courts and 1 sheet of ice. Councilmember Steve made a motion to build 2 sheets of ice, and it was seconded by Councilmember Marcos. The motion carried. In December of 2017, Diana Palangan, who voted for the 2 sheets of ice, was recalled. In March of 2018, she lost her seat to Councilmember Wolfley. 1 month later, in April of 2018, there was a special hearing here where city residents came out to speak against the construction of just ice, and some were here for the ice. Seeing the divide in the room and the support for ice and hardwood floors was not enough for Councilmember Steve to vacate his previous motion. He did nothing. He allowed plans to proceed. Now here we are, June of 2019, 2 years from him asking staff to do more research, with $3 million spent on a project that is currently not moving forward. The Bowie Blade reads, Steve said the city's process for building recreation facilities is broken. There isn't enough money to satisfy every stakeholder group, causing conflict. He said he knew there wasn't sufficient support for the ice arena leading into Monday's vote, after Wolfley replaced former Councilwoman Diana Palanga following the recall, moving the council from 4 in favor to 4 against. Part of that statement was not true. In fact, it was a blatant lie. There was enough money to satisfy 7 of the recreational groups of this city. You just simply chose to ignore 5: basketball, wrestling, volleyball, cheerleading, and pickleball. Councilmember Steve was also on the news stating, and I quote, "There is not a huge appetite amongst Bowie residents at large to fund, projects that are disproportionately used by non-residents. So did the statistical data of the city change that greatly over the last 2 years? Or maybe Councilmember Steve, instead of checking my personal voting record, he should have taken his own advice that he gave to city staff and researched what the residents of the city wanted before making a move that got the hopes up of an entire skating community on high to snatch it away from the children he gave it to." So I guess it is safe to say Councilmember Steve make motions and votes when he thinks something will pass and not what is best for the city. We would have been respected more as a council member had you made this decision last year and saved the city of Bowie that does not have, and I quote, enough money to satisfy every stakeholder group. I hope the voters of this city remembers this in November. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Sims will be followed by Garen Couture. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Natal Sims. I'm a resident of Bowie, and I live just a few miles from the proposed site of the ice rink at Church Road. I use Church Road almost every day to commute to my office. And I'm here to encourage the council to let stand its vote to send to referendum in November the question of whether an ice rink should be built on Church Road. It is prudent, it is not passing the buck to allow voters, the residents of Bowie, the people like me who live in this city, to decide the fate of the proposed ice rink. As those of us who live here are fully aware, and in some cases, painfully aware, Church Road is a heavily utilized thoroughfare in Bowie. Usage of that road will significantly increase if the ice rink is built. I don't think any of us can say with complete assurance that Church Road will be able to handle the influx of vehicular and pedestrian traffic if the ice rink is built. As you know, Church Road and Fairview Vista Drive, an intersection very close to the proposed site of the ice rink, is very tragically where a child lost his life this past Saturday. And I send my deepest condolences to Kamal Nasheed's family. I cannot imagine the heartbreak that family is experiencing. This tragedy is a reminder of why we must be extremely cautious and conservative when considering any development that would impact Church Road, including but not limited to the ice rink. The gravity and consequences of these decisions cannot be underestimated. I implore you to let the citizens of Bowie determine the ice rink's fate at referendum in November. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Garen, Couture? Oh, welcome, sir.
My name is Garen Couture. The Bowie Hockey Club and the city of Bowie needs ice. My family has waited for 3 generations. Please build an ice rink now.
Thank you. Such eloquence should not go undone. Nicole? Sure, I've tried to be really patient, but it just slows the process down. Nicole, is it Milan? Welcome. It should be followed by Christine Wilson Britton. Welcome.
Hi, I'm a figure skater, a brief hockey player, former City of Bowie employed ice guard, coach, and now a collegiate University of Delaware synchronized skater. And I'm going to continue with Lisa's speech that she didn't get to finish. So we realize an agenda item exists for your consideration on a potential $13 million renovation to save the current golf course. I reiterate the same arguments for the court's request. The ice rink does not have time. We will lose our user groups and so much more. Do not put forth a golf course renovation ahead of ice arena's needs. It is simply not their turn either. Courts and a course must wait in line as the ice arena has done for over 30 years. You, as elected officials, cannot make everyone happy all the time. It is your job to do what is best, and this has been researched and voted upon. I heard the argument this past week that the court people no longer trust the council members and have decided to be out for blood. This is a sad state of affairs when scare tactics rule over common sense and duty to office. Do not be afraid of a group of people that are misguided. You have the support and facts and passion from a huge community of ICE people that span this nation and beyond. The petitions, news coverage, media articles, and social media has shown you just how much support you have to be brave and make the decision to repeal this referendum and proceed with your prior votes. You speak of trust. Someone has to trust the process that has been done, even though it was before your time. Someone has to trust the elected officials are men of their word and truly want what is best for the entire city of Bowie. Be trustworthy and honor what is proven through facts, research, to be the best choice. Church Road has been researched and it was approved to be okay. Opinion is not research. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Christina Wilson. Welcome, ma'am. The next speaker would be Karen Garrett.
Oh, I thought it was me.
No, you're up next.
Are you sure? Sorry.
The one that follows you.
Okay.
Go.
I'll be quick. I just want to say that by linking the courts and the ice arena together, you've created a vision in the city that we didn't expect, that we don't necessarily have in our building. At no time has anyone stood in front of you and said that we don't value the gymnasium or the people that use it. We have stood here time and time again asking you to vote for ICE. These are separate issues with different financial repercussions for the city. And it's beyond me why they're linked together, why it has to be one or the other or both. They're separate, totally separate issues. The ice arena has been studied for years, and all reports state that it is good for the city. Don't continue to force your citizens into this conflict. 3 courts and 1 sheet of ice is not a compromise. It doubles the existing courts, and it gives the ice arena an additional 4 weeks per season. That's not equal. In closing, I feel the need to point out that in the almost 50 years the ice arena has been operating, we have never cost the city anywhere near $3.5 million. If this project stops, this council will be solely responsible for that loss of taxpayer money.
Thank you, ma'am. Karen? Karen Gary? And Karen will be followed by Rabbi Stephen Weissman. Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Karen Geary. I'm a 26-year resident of the Bowie in District 2B, and I just wanted to offer my support again for the ice arena. I have spoken a few times before and been to numerous council meetings supporting the ice rink. My son has started playing when he was 10 years old, went through instructional hockey with tons of, he went through instructional hockey, rec hockey, travel hockey. He played high school hockey. A lot of people don't understand that Bowie High School has an ice hockey team. It's now called the Maryland Copperheads, but we still have a team. I was the manager for 4 years, and you've heard many times that the rink people are all family, and that is true. I've met so many people over the years, and you run into them in different states even, because it's such a family, such a community. I just wanted to say also that I've heard a lot of people say that they would never use the ice rink, that they think it's a waste of money. Well, there's other things in the city that I don't use. I don't use the dog park. I don't use the senior center. I don't use the skate park. But that doesn't mean that it's not necessary. It doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile. The ice rink is worthwhile. There's hundreds of kids who have gone through that rink, tons of adults, tons of coaches who have volunteered their time to spend with these kids and to feed their passion. My son has been playing for more than 10 years now, and it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the Bowie ice rink. I also wanted just to mention that hockey is growing in this area. In the Potomac Valley area, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, it's the nation's fastest growing hockey hotbed. 1,000 new players have joined, and now it exceeds almost 22,000 children who've been playing in this area. Rinks are desperately needed. Even when my son was playing on a recreational team, we traveled all over the East Coast. You always travel when you're playing hockey. You play money, you spend money, it's the amount of money that you spend is amazing. It's incredible. And the other thing I wanted to say is I've heard some people say maybe we could partner with the MNC PPC, but they already they're trying to rebuild Tucker Road Ice Rink, which burned down, had a fire in January of 2017. They don't have the money to spend on Bowie Ice Rink, and we've already approved it. It has gone through, and I just think that the children should have something that they've been passionate about and should be able to continue their passion so that you don't kill their dreams and kill their future.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you telling us. And then Rabbi Weissman will be followed by Millie Hall. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff. I thank you for the opportunity to address the council publicly this evening. I'm grateful that we started with a moment of silence. I wish it had included mention of Kamal Nasheed, who, as we heard, was the 14-year-old who was struck and killed while crossing Church Road in a crosswalk this past Saturday, to support his grieving family and friends. And I call upon all of us who drive the roads of Bowie to slow down and be more aware when we drive, and I ask for better enforcement, because that's not the only dangerous place in this town. And I wish we had started with that silence for Nasheed, because honestly, it is not a part of this discussion. It is because a 14-year-old lost his life. That's what matters. I stand here tonight as a 19-year resident living in District 2, as a community leader who came here directly from our city gym, where this evening the Bowie Interfaith Rec Council, as they do every year, presented their annual scholarships to 5 remarkable teenagers who are graduating high school from our community this year. Who knows whether Kamal Nasheed would have been one of those. I'm a transplanted New Yorker who grew up skating on frozen ponds in winter. I remember the first indoor arena opening in our area when I was in high school, and what a revelation it was to skate indoors on consistent ice. So when my daughter caught the skating bug, I was very grateful to have a facility like the Bowie Ice Arena, an excellent facility back in its day, so conveniently located for us. And watching what skating did for her self-expression, confidence, being able to perform in front of people, I'm not sure where she would have been able to find and develop those attributes in herself without the opportunity to skate. She also did summer programs, which were not only much needed childcare at affordable prices, but showed me the impact the rink has on every element of the incredible mosaic that is the Bowie community and our surrounding communities as well. And I also appreciate that the ice rink continues to be a place where our teenagers are willing and able to hang out even after services on Friday night, so close to our building that we could easily shuttle them all there. Truly, the Bowie Ice Rink is one of those institutions that have added value and enjoyment to living, working, and raising my family in our fine city. I would miss having the ice rink in its current location, but I would gladly sacrifice my convenience for an improved facility that can do so much more for so many more members of our community, be so more cost effective, especially as a clear part of a larger program of additions and upgrades to every one of our recreational facilities that will bring similar opportunities to every member of our community and answer all 8 of those needs that we have heard about, rather than pitting us against each other for scraps. I cannot support any plan which risks the disappearance of a Bowie Ice Arena from our community. And after last month's actions, I'm afraid that that is the path that you have now started us down. Ditto, 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 as I have discussed with most of you privately over the last several days and last year. I would add only the following. As our population approaches 60,000 in this city, we need to be looking at becoming more independent as a city, less entangled and dependent on county decisions that impact our city quality of life and other people who we need to partner with to get things done. That meeting at the city gym I came from was at a city gym that was built at the same time as the senior center next door. How many times have we taken pride in being able to do those 2 things at the same time? Why can we no longer achieve similar prideful growth from more members of our community than just one group? Finally, I am a leader in this community who knows the tremendous value of the Bowie Ice Arena. I know what it has for our entire community, far beyond those who skate there. I am also a community leader who understands the reality of all of the recreational issues you are dealing with. I recognize the challenge, the interweaving, the problems. I know they are connected because they are part of our larger plan for recreational growth and development, which is essential to what makes Bowie what it is. I am a community leader who expects our city council to work together for the best interests of all our residents, even when the challenges and disagreements are significant. And I am a community leader who expects that once a promise to take action is made and millions of dollars are spent, then the promise will be kept without delay or political gamesmanship, again, for the benefit of our entire community. That is what brings me here this evening, to implore, no, I'm going to say it, to demand that you act together responsibly as our elected representatives and leaders. Put the ice arena back on track as part of a larger program that addresses all the recreational needs of our entire community, and walk away from the ill-conceived referendum that is a poor excuse for just saying no and having no responsibility on your record. Represent us, please. Lead us, please. Strengthen us, please. All of us, every one of us. Because what you are currently doing on this issue right now achieves none of those. Thank you.
Appreciate the time.
Good evening, Council. My name is Millie Hall. I live at Woodmore Highlands. I too wanted to mention, no one mentioned the young man that lost his life on Saturday. My daughter was driving and she was right there. And she called me and told me there was an accident on Church Road. Okay, when we came here in 1998, we did not expect a business down Church Road. We came there for the greenery. And all at once, everybody wants to come down there. And I don't have anything against the kids. I love kids. But we do not need this at this time. It's too dangerous. Please take it to November to a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, is it Groutley? Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Michelle Gralty. I'm used to being on Capitol Hill, so this is a much more welcoming environment. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Bowie Ice Arena. I live in the P section. My mom and I moved there in 2003 when she immediately put me in ice skating lessons, and I'd like to just speak to 2 brief points today. And one is that a dual sheet facility is needed, and that it needs to be open year-round. So I started skating in 2003, and first I'll speak to the year-round aspect of things. So as we all know, the Bowie Ice Arena closes in May and June, and for my mom, growing up, that meant having to drive a different way home from school every day, because if we drove past the ice arena, I would start to cry because I could not go in anymore in May and June. And that meant as I got older and became more of an advanced skater, having to drive all the way to the Gardens Ice House in Laurel, or to have to drive to Piney Orchard in Odenton. I remember in high school, my coach would pick me up from high school in May and June and drive me to Piney Orchard so that I could continue to skate. I started in the group lesson program, and I've gone on to become a coach. I skated in college at the University of Maryland, and have gone on to compete at the World Championships, and all of that would have been impossible without the Bowie Ice Arena. And next, we definitely need the dual sheet facility as well. Raise your hand if you wish that you had more than 24 hours in a day. So the cool thing is, with a dual sheet facility, you kind of get more than 24 hours in a day in terms of skating. With figure skating, you've got hockey, figure skating, all the public sessions. What if we had a Bowie speed skating team? That could maybe be possible with the dual sheet facility. Moral of the story is, all of these skating groups are also competing with each other for time. Right now, if you're an advanced skater, you can only skate on Tuesday nights and Saturday mornings for about, I want to say, a total of 6 hours maybe. If you're able to make all of the sessions, that's only 2 days a week. We've got other dual sheet and tri-sheet rinks in the area that are offering figure skating sessions from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. at night. All of these teams are competing for ice and really need them. And if the Caps keep winning, we might need a 4-sheet facility coming up with all the growing hockey interest. So that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Karen Darby. Karen, or I'm sorry, Kevin. No answer? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Kevin, no.
Oh, okay.
You know me.
You write like I do.
Oh, come on. Can't be that bad.
Welcome.
Good evening, gentlemen. Looks like we've got ourselves in a little bit of a pickle, and I won't be too hard on you all. Before I start, I'd like to really take this time and give a shout out to the letter written by Miss Felicia Snyder. You know, this really is all one Bowie, and I don't use the skate park either. I am not in. I don't skate on ice. I don't ice skate. But if it's important to you all, and you all members of this community, then it's important to me, and I want you all to have that. But there is a bit of an issue. If you all live in the city of Bowie, you all know how unsafe Church Road is. The gentleman that died, again, his name is Kamal Nasheed, was 14 years old. He, and I guess I should address you gentlemen as well, he died at a little after 1 p.m. I don't know if you all know or not, but the sun is up at 1 p.m. I mean, you all, if you want this ice skating arena, you all will be there at 1 p.m. We don't have the infrastructure to support this right now. We have a loss of a life to prove that. The only thing that I can ask is that you gentlemen, if you don't want to take this burden upon yourselves, it is smart to let the people decide. We're the voices. We are the parents. We are the children that walk. We are the members of this community. So I'm up for it. If you're up for it. Oh, and congratulations to you, Mr. Robinson, on your decision to step down. Congratulations. I will be giving you a Rolex, of course. So you can be looking forward to that. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right, that's all the people I have signed up. So let me just kind of wrap things up here. First thing, council's not making any decision on the ice rink tonight. All right, the council's current position is this is in a stop position right now. I do believe that there's still some genuine interest on members of this council, even though people here with divided opinions and personal opinions on the way this thing can and should be done. I still think there's an interest in achieving some kind of a resolution here. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is stay engaged, continue to talk to your council member, continue to talk to each other, and hopefully, within the next few weeks we'll come up with something. It may be definitive, it may be not, it may not be something that you like, it may be something that you like. We're going to, like I say, I know there are some of us here that disagree with each other on this. Hopefully we can keep that, we can continue to compartmentalize that, because whatever we do is going to be what we all collectively say is what's going to be best for the city. So I thank every one of you for coming tonight. For those of you that are coaches and whatever, we all thank you for what you do for our children, the thousands of hours that you donate in helping them. And we all up here know that you coaches and stuff are committing a fraud on your children because they think they're out there having a good time and learning to play a game. But what you are really teaching them is respect for each other, communication skills, team building skills, all of those skills that are going to make them into productive human beings. So thank you all for that. You're free to sit here and engage in the rest of the evening, but that's the end of this component for now. I'm going to move on to the rest of my agenda. Okay. Next item on the agenda is council announcements, and the only one that I have is that remind everybody the council is inviting everybody to join them on July the 2nd at the Baysock Stadium for Independence Day fireworks. Mr. City Manager, is that at 7 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
What time is it?
It's, don't.
Anybody over there have the starting time
Yes, 7
for the
o'clock.
Fireworks program?
7 o'clock.
7? Okay. So you're more than welcome to come and enjoy the evening. Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, I have no report for this evening.
Okay, thank you.
I had a great time in New York.
Consent agenda. Okay. Wait a minute. Let's see the consent agenda. Council, we have a consent agenda, items A through F. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda? Moved by here, Senator Connor. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Is there any question on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Old business. Mr. City Manager, approval of emergency ordinance 0419.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This evening, we bring to your attention emergency ordinance 0419, authorizing the transfer of certain funds in the FY 2018 and 2019 budget. During the course of the fiscal year, it becomes necessary to transfer amounts within funds to provide for the proper operation of the city. Section 46 of the city's charter requires that any transfer of funds be between appropriations proposed by the city manager must be approved by city council before becoming effective. Ordinance 0419 authorizes the transfer of certain amounts into accounts that at year end will have an excess of expenditure over appropriation. Where applicable, the transfers have been taken from accounts within the same departments. Other transfers have been taken from the reserve for contingencies. In the proposed budget for fiscal year 2020, many of the proposed changes were communicated to City Council under the estimated FY 2019 expenditure column. Since these were estimates were originally prepared in February, some of the subsequent adjustments have been taken place from what was submitted to City Council in the proposed budget. The adjustments total less than 1%. We've outlined in our document to you, Council, those transfers that were $25,000 or more. I won't go through each and every one of them unless you want me to speak to them. But we suggest that Council will approve the emergency ordinance 0419 to authorize the transfer of funds.
Okay. Questions, staff? Do you have anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir.
I declare the public hearing to be held. All right, you have a request to transfer certain funds from the 2019 budget. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second. Any question on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Item next, Bowie Golf Course analysis.
Mr. Mayor.
City Manager.
2.5 years ago, when I assumed the duties, one of the challenges that was presented was the Bowie Golf Course. There were some contractual issues, there were some production issues, and as you all recall, we relieved them of their release requirements, payment requirements, and of course, this caused us to take a really good look at the golf course to see, one, if the current contract was we were able to sustain that, and look at specifically what's necessary. Since we have no golf experts, certified golf experts on staff, we put out a request for proposals and sought an expert organization to take a look at and analyze our golf course and tell us what we need to do. So Nick Spurgeon had that project, and he's going to take it from here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The Bowie Golf Course has been owned by the City of Bowie since 1981. This 18-hole golf course has a 6,820 square foot clubhouse built in 1724, with more recent additions being constructed in 1975 and 1984, which encompass a pro shop and the 19th hole bar and grill. Bowie Golf Management Incorporated is currently under contract to manage the daily operations of the facility. This contract will expire in 2021. Recognizing deficiencies at the Bowie Golf Course, in 2018, FY 2018, staff included the Bowie Golf Course in the capital improvement program. City Council at that time approved $250,000 to help repair failed irrigation pumps, pipes, pump stations, boiler systems, and other sundry maintenance issues. In FY 2019, there was approximately $95,000 allocated to make repairs to the clubhouse. As staff began to dig deeper, it was evident that the current clubhouse was in disrepair. Staff determined that a strategy was needed to responsibly plan appropriate work and forecast costs. In fall 2018, a project management team was created and tasked with developing a scope of service for a golf course renovation analysis. Engineering firms were selected with specific backgrounds and specialty in golf course analysis. The city engaged in an intent to negotiate in March 2019. 2 proposals were submitted by competent and well-respected firms. Members of the project management team conducted interviews with the 2 firms. On April 1st, 2019, the city contracted with McDonald & Sons of Jessup, Maryland to prepare a golf course renovation analysis of the Bowie Golf Course. The purpose of this project was to evaluate how to continue to provide this amenity as a municipal golf course and position it for long-term success. To be clear, staff are not requesting decisions this evening. Rather, council and staff are receiving this presentation and final report for the first time. The project management team will review this analysis and prepare staff recommendations during the FY21 budget process. At this time, I invite Joel Wyman and Logan Thompson from McDonald & Sons and McDonald Design Group to the front to present the Bowie Golf Course renovation analysis.
Thank you. Thank you, council members.
We'll start off with the idea that golf is my favorite four-letter word. I'm going to learn this game one day.
Thank you. We appreciate your time today, and some of the council members that we visited with last Thursday at the golf course. Logan and I very much appreciate your time as well. And this is a work product for the last few months, and I would like to have a special thanks to city staff that were very generous with their time and very helpful as we created this document for your review. A little background on our companies. McDonald Inc. Is the umbrella organization of McDonald & Sons and McDonald Design Group, a construction branch and a design branch of our firms. We are located in Maryland. We do a lot of work in the Mid-Atlantic. We have extensive experience of projects of this type. In just the last calendar year in 2018, we've completed 84 projects with golf facilities of different fashions. 42 are those design projects headed by Logan and myself. But more important to you, that 25 of those facilities are in Maryland. So we know the golf business, we know the golf industry, we know your local challenges that you may face going forward with Bowie. So we created this 133-page document that you received last week, and we did that in conjunction with a team of consultants that include turfgrass experts, irrigation experts, clubhouse designers, and builders to create a potential vision for the future of the Bowie Golf Club. So this is the plan that we created. This is the what that could position Bowie to be successful going forward. But also, it's just not what, but it's also how we get there as far as implementation schedules and potential costs for this program, and you can find that within the document we provided. Towards the end of the document, there is a cost analysis as far as revenues and costs and expenditures to show the return on investment for the facility. The first question may be, why undertake the study at all? First, City Council has two important decisions to make in the near future. First, the future operation of the facility. Okay, the current operator, Bowie Golf Management, their contract expires in September 2021, so you will have to make a decision as far as the future management of the facility. Secondly, the structure itself. For decades now, the golf courses have been plagued by delayed infrastructure investments. It can no longer be ignored if you want to continue operating a golf course, a public golf course within the city of Bowie. However, it's a fortunate time for these changes. There's a few reasons for that. First, due to development, two local golf courses are being lost in our area. Patuxent Greens is already closed and is being developed. And Glendale Golf Club, that's even closer, is scheduled to close later this year. Okay, so we'll have an increased supply of golfers, and we'll have more greens fees as a result at Bowie Golf Club. There's also opportunities for shared development in the future. There's a 7.5-acre parcel between the golf course itself and 197 that could be a potential cross-marketing opportunity for additional recreational amenities within the same piece of ground. And finally, the game of golf is evolving. It's changing, and we want to tap into that evolving golf market and create a practice-centric facility. We know we have to renovate the clubhouse and things on the property. As we do that, we can really tap into this evolving game of golf. And finally, we found that with our research, city staff created not really a survey, but an informal sample of Bowie patrons. And we found that we're really underrepresented with the city residents there at the golf course. We have to make better connections with city residents and make it more of a city facility rather than a regional facility. As you can see in this diagram here, about 2/3 of the users on this given day were not city residents. But we can have better connections going forward with targeted marketing and outreach programs. So as far as the infrastructure needs, which is the majority of our analysis within the program that we provided you, for the golf course, we're failing, and we're on borrowed time. This is a picture of the driving range. The range is located a little bit far from the clubhouse. It's too short for most players to hit golf balls. It's too narrow. Once you get there, it's a less than inspiring golf facility. The existing operators, they only realized a $5,000 revenue source from the driving range in the entire calendar year 2018. We need to do much better than that, maybe by a factor of 20, and we can. Cart paths are in disrepair. This was a hot topic in that survey sample that we received. The conditions of this cart path that's chronic throughout the golf course. The irrigation system is antiquated at best. There's only a handful of golf courses in the entire area now that are a manual system, not automated. It's not driven by computer. You can only operate this system if you plug in a hose with a roller base. Very labor intensive. It is not a recipe for future success, and the piping in the ground is on borrowed time. As far as the golf features, bunkers, drainage, fairways, turf grass, it has not been renovated. It hasn't been updated in decades and does need to be addressed to be successful. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds as far as what the golf course design may look like. I just want to leave you with the fact that we do propose to leave the holes pretty much in place. We don't want to shift things. We don't want to make a dogleg left, go to a dogleg right just for the sake of doing so. We want to improve the infrastructure, make smart, savvy decisions, and create a golf course that'll be there for the next generation. We know that Tiger Woods most likely will not be playing here. That's not who we're trying to design for. We're trying to design for a public golf course to keep greens fees relatively low and a place where families can enjoy recreation and the game of golf. As far as infrastructure for the structures on the clubhouse campus, the clubhouse is certainly dated, but that's not the big problem. It's also structurally unsound. Towards the back of our report, you'll see that part of the clubhouse is actually not safe to be in, so we had to close down part of that clubhouse. Unfortunately, that's where the bathrooms are. So we don't even have working toilets within the clubhouse facility, so we've got this temporary structure in the back. That's how dire the situation is at the Bowie Golf clubhouse. We also have accessibility issues at the clubhouse. In the maintenance facility, it's the maintenance facility and a cart barn together. Both are too small for their uses. We've got cart wash issues and fuel distribution issues and things like that at this facility. So we're in dire need of a new maintenance shop as well at the golf club. Our talented building architects that we brought in as part of our team, they envisioned building a clubhouse to the side of the existing facility. So on the right, that is the existing farmhouse. It was built in the 1700s. Unfortunately, it had some unattractive additions put onto it over the time. Those would be removed, and that would be an open-air pavilion. That would stay open and operational while the new clubhouse could possibly be constructed to the left there in that image. It's a modest building, 5,200 square feet. It's not overbuilt, but it would service the needs of Bowie Golf Club going forward. As far as the practice-centric golf opportunities that I mentioned before, we're seeing a really big increase in practice and golf course practice, industry-wide in both private and public golf courses. And I think a lot of that's driven by this golf entertainment model. Companies like Top Golf are really having great success marrying, the sport of golf with a more social, family-friendly atmosphere. You can see Top Golf here. I don't envision the final facility at Bowie being this snazzy or sleek. But the point is, you can be with your friends, you can be with your family. There might be music, televisions. You can see food and beverage served right behind. It's just like bowling, but you get to keep your own shoes on. Okay, it can be quite fun. Top Golf is really being successful. But why is practice increasing industry-wide? Well, it's faster, right? So we all face greater time restraints now. It also can be cheaper. And with all the technology and the swing aids and the videos, it's easier to get better on the range than it is on the golf course, and you can have that gratification of hitting golf balls without investing all the time and money in playing golf. It's also just good business for Bowie Golf Club. We can have a brand new revenue stream for the practice facilities with relatively low overhead. The driving range would support the food and beverage sales and vice versa, and it would help build a bigger clientele base as we get more people introduced to the game. And in turn, all the revenue produced by the food and beverage and the driving range will help subsidize those low fees so that we can keep golf affordable for Bowie residents going forward. It'll allow us to grow the game. It won't be just for serious players, although we'll have a place in the driving range for that. But it's also a place that you can bring your children, you can bring your friends, you can go with your spouse for date night within this driving range. And it's a very non-threatening, welcoming environment. Golf can be intimidating for beginners to get involved with the game. So we plan on doing that by extending the driving range. Right now that range is too short, so we would reroute the 9th hole, move the 9th green forward. That would also address a safety issue to the left of the 9th green. So we would create space by making the driving range bigger and longer. you can see that we have the new clubhouse directly behind the expanded driving range. We're also planning on, studying the feasibility of lighting the range, and we've included cost projections for that, so you can extend the hours of operation for the driving range and help enhance that golf entertainment model after work or later on the weekends. The beauty of the plan is the fact that the clubhouse talks to the driving range tee. They're directly next to each other. You can see those four double-headed arrows there. Those are rolling doors where the food and beverage, the bar area, the food service area interconnects with a patio that's directly adjacent to the tee line to, again, make that more informal area for food and beverage service to increase the traffic and the revenues of the driving range tee line. We also see this to be more family-friendly and encompassing even having bocce courts, cornhole, things like that to make it more intriguing for the users. So that's the overall vision for the clubhouse campus and the golf course. But as far as how we would propose getting it into the ground, we propose a phased approach. And we call that Package A and Package B. Package A includes all the infrastructure investments that we talked about, most of the car paths, a new irrigation system, drainage in the greens, all the soft costs for design and engineering, and also the completion of the clubhouse construction, everything within phase 2, that heart of the plan, that gets the golf facility operational for the new driving range clubhouse construction. So that's the majority of the golf course infrastructure. That is unfortunately the most expensive part of the package, but again, we need a new clubhouse with the structural issues that exist in the existing facility. Package B would be on the periphery of the golf courses, phase 3 through 6. That would be primarily the golf features, the tees and bunkers, and a little bit of car path work. It can be completed in multiple off seasons, okay? So that can happen in a series of years, and it can happen after the clubhouse is constructed to allow the golf entertainment model, business model, to prove itself going forward. The financial model for the Bowie Golf Club with this new vision, it does forecast a positive cost recovery. You can find that on page 48 in your report. And we can do that through increased golfer supply. Patuxent Greens, which is much farther away than Bowie Golf Club, has already closed, and the operators are seeing a dramatic increase in the number of rounds being played in the last 2 months. Okay. When Glendale closes, it's scheduled to close later this year. We think that we will really see our rounds increase, our golfer supply increase. Again, with our new business model of the driving range and the clubhouse interconnecting, we have increased driving range revenue, increased food and beverage revenue that feed off each other. We're also proposing for the city to consider a surcharge for non-city resident play. Okay, this is pretty standard in the golf business. They don't do it now at Bowie Golf Club. For instance, Howard County's course, Timbers at Troy, if you're an out-of-county resident, it's a they pay 12% more than an in-county resident, and that's something that could be considered at Bowie. Our model using this tactic raises another $81,000 and helps protect lower greens fees for city residents. It is important that we do keep our greens fees low, even though the golf course will be improved. During that informal survey, 99 responses on this question here. What's the main reason why you choose to play at Bowie that day? Affordability was #1 answer at 55%. Okay, so we have to be mindful of that. Again, we don't want to overbuild the facility. We want to create a nice golf course that'll stand the test of time and be there for the next generation. But again, we're not designing it for Tiger Woods. The other question that the City Council will have to address sooner than later is the future operation of the golf course. That positive cost recovery is true even for self-operation, so not having an outside vendor run the golf course. And we recommend that the city does consider this approach. Okay, you can see we have 102% cost recovery with that analysis. So why consider self-operation instead of having an outside vendor operate the golf course? There's a few reasons. One, you're hitting it at the right time, that fortunate timing with the closure of the redevelopment of a few neighboring golf courses. Also, we have to invest in the golf course and the irrigation infrastructure, the turf grass on the tees and the fairways. We have to build, we have to have bathrooms that work on the property. And so it would be wise for the city to protect their own capital investments by operating and managing that facility instead of having an outside vendor that may not have the long-term interest of the property at heart. Keep in mind that a golf course is a living, breathing thing, and damage can be done to that turf grass out there on the golf course. We do think that there are some efficiencies with the Parks and Grounds Department as far as manpower, equipment, and also expertise and knowledge that you can pull from. It is really the only true way that you can have control over all the policies, the fees, and the marketing of the facility, and it can really become a great flagship city facility going forward. The last note on this slide, it is an intangible thing, but it's vital that the golf course can provide services and outreach and youth programs, and they're not really revenue generators, okay? So an outside vendor may not focus on these youth programs, for instance, because it doesn't improve their bottom line, but is in a very, very important aspect to what the golf course can provide the city of Bowie going forward. One of those things are junior golf. This is just a picture of my boys. They're starting to play golf. I took this picture a week or two ago. I'm seeing what junior golf does for them and their confidence, in learning the etiquette and the rules. Golf did a lot for me growing up as a kid, and I see what it's doing to my boys and to the boys that they play with in this PGA Junior League. But it's the first tee, it's stick for kids. Even foot golf, it's your boys and girls clubs here locally. There's a lot of different things that the city can become involved with the game of golf to teach youth and youngsters, life skills, much more than just hitting a golf ball. Also, there's opportunities. Golf course superintendents have an interactive STEM, science and technology classes that they actually give on golf courses in the state of Maryland, with a public school system, and a lot of environmental opportunities like Weed Warriors of Montgomery County or Audubon certification. We're not taking advantage of really any of these now in the existing golf course, and this golf course can be a vehicle to help enhance the lives of city residents. And really promote the facility going forward, along with that front parcel there someday that you could find another recreational use and really drive a lot of interaction between these two parcels. That's all we have.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate all the work that's gone into getting us to this point. Mr. City Manager, do you have something specific?
Mr. Mayor,
I'm going to see if council has any questions about the project, but
well, this is an information briefing for you all. We plan to address the concerns in the next budget process, but we wanted to give you an assessment for what the circumstances are at the golf course that we own, and listen to the recommendations of these experts. And they're there to ask them any questions or clear up anything in your mind about our circumstances.
Anybody have any questions for our guest, Mr. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to talk a little bit about this project in the broader context, okay? So I apologize in advance that I'm going to take a couple minutes here to make some remarks. And then I promise I have some questions for you. Sure. First of all, I just want to say a big thank you to Lori, Felicia, Lisa. Felicia also spoke on behalf of Abby, Bill, and the many who have written me in the last week and a half on the subject, both of the city's ice rink and the dual project, but also on the subject of a number of recreation facilities that we have. The ice rink vote was always a close one. I went back last week and watched about 6 hours of council meetings, okay, going back several years. Carrie Bridges, who spoke tonight, walked through some of the history, and I think her facts are pretty much correct to my memory. It's always been a close vote. Apart from a couple of process issues, most of the votes on the sports complex and its various iterations were never more than 4 votes in the time that I was on the city council. It was usually 4-2 or 4-3. And I also want to apologize to all of you who are watching this, to the ice hockey community members who I've been talking to for the last week and a half, to my colleagues and to the mayor, because I realize that a huge part of your frustration is that you were taken by surprise by the events of our meeting 2 Mondays ago. And I can assure you it was not my or my colleagues' intentions to surprise you. It really wasn't. This has always been a close 4-3 vote. When one of my colleagues, Councilwoman Palangan, was recalled, this stopped being a 4-3 vote for and became a 4-3 vote against. In fact, when you go back to one of our previous meetings where we were getting ready to move forward on the project, the initial vote failed at 3-3 and only moved forward because of concessions we agreed to look into alternative construction processes that would bring down the total costs of the ring project, and those were looked into. One of the other challenges, which isn't unique to us on the City Council, it's a problem for all local governments, is one of communication between council members. You know, and that's not just an us thing. That's the case with a lot of municipal bodies all across the region. When I talk to folks, I hear about this. And, you know, one of the challenges that we have is one of communication on this whole body, you know. It took us 3 years just to get a retreat for us to sit down as a group and talk about economic development. And that only happened after one of our colleagues was recalled. And I guess it dawned on us collectively that maybe we need to sit down and talk about this big roaring issue. So there's not a lot of communication up here, unfortunately. Most of our meaningful conversations tend to be in the forms of questions on emotion. Not a lot you can learn in that time. So I apologize for the communication issues. Lisa mentioned in her comments, and I totally agree, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I have to tell you, you know, if I have to, and if you have to sit through 4 more years of the City Council debating different projects without a final result, I think we will all go crazy by then. I think that is insanity. For me, the referendum vote was a compromise to ensure that this project wasn't killed outright, but it was also a precedent. All the user groups who have come before us, you know, have made a strong case for their individual projects, courts, ice, tonight we have golf. I've heard from a lot of parents of swimmers who are livid that even though the feasibility study rated their aquatics project as #1, was never given serious consideration in all these years. But I also have to point out that we don't just work for the user groups of our many recreational amenities. We work for our residents and we work for our taxpayers. Most of the users of our recreational amenities, the courts and the ice, don't live in the city of Bowie. Just in our last budget cycle, we actually managed to get the rosters and see the resident and non-resident breakdown of our user groups. It was the first time many of us had seen that data.
Mr. Stev, I know with all due respect, and I know where you're going is, but I'd like to try to keep the discussion on the agenda item as much as we can, if you don't mind.
Okay. I think this is directly related, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be quick. I know that we've got a long night tonight, and I apologize. Most of our user groups don't live in Bowie. 43% total of the members of groups who use our courts are residents. 25% of the members of groups who use our ice rinks are residents. Now, in fairness, we also have non-residents who use the senior center, and of, you know, many of our amenities. They're not always used by a majority of residents, and so I get that. I get that. We agreed as a group a couple years ago when we were looking at doing 2 sheets of ice and 5 courts that the combined cost of that project at roughly $36 million was just beyond what we could afford. That was a unanimous decision. And right now, the challenge that I have is that we're not just looking at ice anymore. Just in the last few weeks, we've learned that this project, the golf project, is now going to cost us $13 million. And we're hearing a lot of the same things again. We need the investment for the amenity to continue. Now is the time. We can't wait. The lease expires in 2021. We're hearing a lot of the same things again. And so what we're looking at isn't just a $25 million ice project anymore. It's a $25 million ice project, a $13 million golf project, and anywhere from a $5 to $15 million court project, the promise for which was essential for moving forward with the 2 sheets of ice. So we're back to looking at $40 million in projects, not just 25. And even though I believe that the 2 sheets of ice can make back their expenses, staff have told me many times and reminded me many times last week that they don't think it will make back the $25 million in construction costs. This golf project right now is expected, according to the numbers that you gave us in this report, to make 102% of its expenses back. That's wonderful. That's great if we can do that. There's no guarantee. But that probably won't cover the $13 million we need to make the investment in the first place. I was told when we visited the golf course last week that the golf club has 80 members. 80. and maybe 1,400 people who go through the place as non-member users. And of the informal survey that was done, it wasn't statistical, but of the informal survey, the vast majority of those didn't live in Bowie either. So my problem, and the reason why we've been in this situation, is because we're no longer just talking $25 million of ice. We're now in a position, just like we were 5 years ago and 2 years ago and last year, where we're having to consider taking on many more recreational amenities than we can afford to do. Members of the recreation groups have said, well, you should just take them all on. That would be roughly $50 million in projects, maybe 60. Our total annual city operating budget is $55 million, right? So without raising taxes on our residents, we wouldn't be able to do that, not at all, not at all. And right now, we're just barely making our budgets as it is. We've been having to eat into our reserves to cover our expenses for existing things. I can tell you, when we raised water and sewer rates on our residents last year, a lot of folks really reacted poorly, not because they weren't willing to pay, but because a lot of our residents are seniors, are young families with a lot of student debt and a lot of mortgage debt, for whom the extra $40 a month in their water bill made a huge difference. We're already asking residents for more money every year as property values increase, even though our tax rate has remained flat. But to raise that tax rate would represent a lot more money that we're asking for our residents, and that's a big ask for recreational facilities that they are overwhelmingly not using. So for me, the precedent of a referendum isn't about punishing one group or rewarding another group. For me, the precedent of a referendum is coming up with a better way, a fairer way to make decisions, not just on one project, but on all these projects that we're going to be facing long after some of my colleagues are gone. So those are my comments on that. As for the golf course project, you're talking about a $13 million investment, is that correct?
Yes.
You think that it'll make back 102% of its expenses, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How sure are you about that?
Well, it's our projection where we have modeled an increase in rounds, capturing Glendale users. So although you mentioned 80 members, the membership is not our target. That is like a loyalty program. So actually those players play a reduced rate per round. You know, it's the daily fee members that the daily fee play that we're looking to capture. And, you know, in the mid 30, I think it's like 35,000 rounds per year, will get us to that revenue rate of 102%.
Okay. There are some golf courses, excuse me, near to us that are closing down, and we think that'll be helpful. There are also some golf courses near us that are doing quite well, one on Enterprise Road, one on Beech Tree. How do we feel about that competition?
Well, we think that the user groups between Glendale and Bowie really do overlap, and we think that we will really see an increase from the Glendale play more so than the Patuxent, and we think that we will capture a very big segment of that Glendale play.
I understand what you gentlemen are trying to do, and I really appreciate it. You guys hung out with us for a long time the other night as we visited our golf course, and you have a really great plan, and this is a really great report, and I really appreciate it. You know, a lot of other towns and communities have a program where at election time they'll put up for a vote several different projects, you know, and they'll offer a certain sum of money that they have in a pot, $1 million, $2 million, whatever they can. And residents themselves will vote on which projects they want to move forward on. I really encourage the city to take a look at doing this. Our elections are only every 4 years, but given the number of projects we have coming up, given the number and dollar amount that we're being asked to spend for a bunch of different recreational amenities, both new ones and replacement ones, I think we're going to have to take an approach where we consult voters on these projects and figure out from them what they are willing to have us invest in. Because the $25 million for ice, the $5 to $15 million for courts, the $13 million for golf, that doesn't include aquatics. It doesn't include the many projects for trails that residents constantly lobby us for. It doesn't include any of the environmental initiatives or our desire to address EV readiness or to move our fleet to renewable energy. And I keep reading that climate change is a thing. And it doesn't address the road improvements or the long-term replacements we'll have to make to our existing courts and senior center. So I apologize for taking up so much time, but I think a lot of this needed to be said. What's staff opinion on working with Maryland National Capital Park and planning in dealing with our golf course? Because as of right now, my understanding is that the city, through property taxes, residents currently send about $16 million to Maryland National Capital Park and planning collectively, but we're getting back maybe only $6 million.
So what's your question, sir? I'm not sure what your question is.
What's staff's willingness to work with Maryland National Capital Park and planning for the investment and management of our golf course?
Well, we're willing to work with them and anybody else who wants to help us, renovate and or maintain this golf course. The purpose of this briefing, though, just to be clear, wasn't to ask for any money. That was not the purpose of this briefing, was to inform you of the circumstances and the conditions of the golf course. And somewhere between now and the next budget process, staff would be surveying you all and to determine how much work, if any, you wanted to do, or whether we wanted to repurpose that property. But right now, we're willing to work with Maryland National Park and Planning on this and any other project if they have any money to contribute.
Well, I appreciate your saying that, Mr. City Manager, and I recognize that you're not asking us for $13 million tonight. I recognize that you're telling us you're going to ask us for $13 million before our next budget session.
No, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to ask you for $13 million, but sometime between now and the next budget process, we're going to make a recommendation as to what particular aspects of this analysis we would want to move forward. If you look at our budget process over the last 3 years, we put $250,000 in the budget for upgrades over the last 2 years. I have no intention of asking for that much money for the golf course. But if it's an indication from the council as a whole that you want to maintain this amenity, then we will make recommendations to incrementally improve the golf course, but certainly not $13 million.
So to our consultants, in order for us to make the investments necessary for this to run as a humming machine that will make back, its operating expenses, fully take advantage of the market now, how much money do you think we'll need to invest?
It can be looked at in sections. The irrigation system most definitely needs to be addressed, in the coming years. The irrigation system is about 1.6 million, I believe, of the 13 million. The cart pass can be done over time, although it might be a bumpy and uncomfortable ride. It doesn't have to be done immediately. Smaller capital expenditures over the years, you could tackle the greens drainage infrastructure within the green system themselves. So there's some agronomic things that you could do, a more focused, finesseful approach. However, the nagging issue is the structural deficiencies and the safety of the clubhouse structure. That won't improve on its own, and that will have to be addressed at some time.
Okay. The last thing that I have, I sent an email last week asking staff to look into six things. One, working with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning to gauge their willingness to work with us on a 2-sheet ice rink. I know that I've talked to my colleagues in the past about working with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, and I think it was largely shrugged off, in part because of concerns of our relationship with them at the time, and because of a general sense that they wouldn't be willing to work with us. I've asked that staff would work with Black Bear Sports Group and to see from Murray Gunty, their owner, who reached out to us about taking over management of our ice rink, whether he would be willing to maintain open skate time, get a sense of what his rates would be, to see whether he would be willing to hire on existing city staff at the rink, and to what extent we could hold him accountable to those aims. I asked what the rate structure would have to be on the new 2-rink project, not only to cover its operating expenses, but also to cover its construction costs. That was an idea that was proffered by members of the ICE community. I asked staff to include council and the ICE community and the public at large in the writing of the referendum that we have currently directed you to undertake on the subject of the ice rink. I want that process to be open and transparent as much as humanly possible. I've asked for an update on the availability of funds for emergency repairs at the existing rink to ensure it is not lost in the interim. And I've asked staff that we work with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning on future collaborations for future golf and future court projects. I will reiterate that request tomorrow and ask that my colleagues join me in formally making that request. And we will designate a date by which we would like to hear back on most, if not all, of those individual points. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of our guests? Mr. Wolf.
Thanks for coming out this evening. We greatly appreciate your time. You've put together a very nice proposal. A couple questions for you. The first is the second group of, I think you had it 10 million and 3 million roughly. It wasn't clear to me, or I'm just not remembering, the group 2, the second phase, what was to happen in that work?
Right. So the difference between Group A and Group B, Group A are it's two components really. It's the initial infrastructure to support the golf course, the irrigation and the greens drainage. It's the soft cost for the engineering and design work for the clubhouse, and it's all the improvements around the clubhouse to get the clubhouse, the maintenance facility built, and the golf features around it to make it happen. Okay, we made that as small as we possibly could to get the clubhouse functioning so we can flush a toilet in the clubhouse. And then Group B are all the areas on the periphery of the golf course that aren't touching or aren't dependent on the clubhouse renovation. So that'd be the tees and the bunkers and some of the cart path work on the holes that are not near the clubhouse improvements themselves.
So those items are mostly with condition of play and condition of ride. There's that could be incrementally done.
Absolutely. So we're actually recommending that the golf course never be closed. So for package B, all of those improvements would be implemented in the off season and the winter months. We want to make sure that we retain a loyal customer base and not to have the golf course ever be closed, so we can keep the revenues going through the golf course. So they would be done in a series of winter months, year after year, and it can be done at your pace as quickly or as slowly as you care to.
And if we took package A, could we compartmentalize that into different groups that would be logical breakpoints for the same incremental approach, so that we're not facing a huge outlay right up front?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. And is that something that you guys could do, or because I didn't take note of it in the report?
Right. Yes. So greens drainage and irrigation, I think, are the two most vital aspects for the golf course. It's the more low-hanging fruit that you can tackle without going after the bigger clubhouse construction number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Do you have anything you want to close with, or any suggestions or comments for us?
No, Mr. Mayor, we hope you all learned something. I'm glad everybody had an opportunity to get out to the golf course and take a look at the clubhouse. And as I said, we'll be taking a look at the report, and we'll have our project team
back from you after the year,
bring something back with a recommendation, and it won't be the entire amount, though, for sure.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the work and the introduction. All right, item next is a carryover from a previous meeting. Some discussion about business personal property tax issues. There was some, Mr. City Manager, was there any other questions? I think Dr. Trout had a question for the lawyer. This would be the auto dealership. You had a question for the lawyer. So I think let me back up. The proposal was, the request came from the dealerships in the city that were paying personal property taxes on their fleets, which at least I never anticipated that would be done, but didn't know that was being done. But they've asked for consideration to phase that out, given that they don't actually own the vehicles, in fact, and there was some state law change this year that allows us to do that. And I think Dr. Trout had a couple of specific questions he wanted to address to legal staff. Dr. Trout?
Actually, I thought I was going to defer to Councilman Wolfley, because Councilman Wolfley had a question, and his question was looking at the dealership. There was a fee that was rendered. I'm thinking about the fee was substantially lower when they looked at the automobiles again. And the sentiment was the reason for the lowering of the base amount of automobiles that was on the property was that they moved them across the street. So I think that you had asked that, am I not correct? So I think we need to get an answer to his question, because I think his question was pertinent, because the feeling was that moving them across the street takes them out the city, which is the reason why there was a difference. So I don't know, we don't know the reason why there was such a big variance in one dealership's fees versus what they were supposed to be paying versus the next year. It seemed to be a significant drop off. Am I correct on that, Mr. Wolfley? Councilman Wolfley, am I correct on that? Okay.
Yeah, no, I had that very concern, which was why we had a change in, significant change in how that inventory was represented, and why we ended up with a much lower tax base, if you will, for that inventory, never mind the change. And I'm not sure how we resolve, getting an answer on that. And I'm not even sure who the proper person is to resolve that.
Yes, if I can speak, Councilman, we don't have access to the actual files and documentations that are being submitted by the car dealership. What we receive is a assessment amount by the state of Maryland, and it just gives us the billable, assessable amount, which we then apply our property tax rate to, and then charge those individual companies the amount due. So we're not privy to the information that they're following to the state. That will be between the car dealership and the state.
Is there a vehicle for, poor choice of words, is there a method for ascertaining how that was done? Is there someone we can appeal to or inquire as to how the calculations were assembled?
I did provide that to you earlier on in the session to show you the amount of inventory tax that relates to the auto dealerships as opposed to their regular inventory that deals with fixtures and furnishings.
Oh, yes. No, I'm familiar with that, and,
okay.
And I understand it. The question I had was, in that calculation, it showed a dramatic decrease in the dollar value of the inventory that would be taxable. Yet, when one drives by the facility, one sees a full lot that's no different than what one saw the year before and continues to see to this day. So the question is, how is it that they were able to have a significantly lower inventory for taxation purposes? And is there a method for us to inquire? I understand that we don't actually go out and do the assessments, and we rely on the state to provide those numbers to us. But when a community such as ours has a question about the value or the assessed value of the property, is there a method for us to go and ask the state to reveal to us how that, what the methodology was?
Councilman, I'm not sure that the city has the ability, because we're not privy to that relationship between the dealership and the state, but I will contact the state to find out what information they can provide for us other than just the total assessed value of the inventory.
Let Alyssa chime in here.
Okay.
Councilman, we can investigate whether that information would be subject to a Public Information Act request. I don't know the answer to that question offhand, but I don't know of any particular reason why it wouldn't be. So we can look into that. Also, of course, if an entity is coming to you and asking for specific relief in the form of legislation, you have the ability to inquire of that entity that it make disclosure of things it might not otherwise wish to disclose.
That's an excellent point, and I think one that we should act upon.
You want to table this until you get that answer?
I think that would be a good idea.
You want to
Yes.
make that motion?
So moved.
You're moving to table the motion until you get the answer back?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Can we hold up on the table?
Certainly.
Because I have a question I want to ask.
Okay, all right. You got a question on the motion?
No, I'm asking.
But wait a minute,
Hold
the
up on-
motion to table is not debatable.
I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Okay, go ahead.
That's what I was asking.
All right.
Okay. Basically, the question, I think that the two of us, when I say the two of us, I mean Councilman Wolfley and myself, I know I'm looking at the fact that in the medium across on 301 from the car dealership, there was a time when there were no additional cars over there. Now there are cars over there. I think what we want to know is, when the cars got there, was there then an appreciable drop in the amount of inventory that was being reported? That's basically what we want to know, because there's a significant drop in the inventory in 1 year versus another year and subsequent years. So we want to know, how is this possible? How did this occur? What is the reason? What's the rationale for it? Physically, we see that once upon a time there were no cars over there, and now there are all kinds of cars over there. And they're in the medium, and the medium is not in the city of Bowie.
Well, Dr. Trout, the one source of information would be the business owner himself to explain that circumstances without us doing some investigation. The evidence indicates, however, that the difference between the 18 bill and the 2019 bill is almost $60,000 as far as from what the tax bill would be. So obviously something has occurred as to how the inventory is accounted, because it's still in the general vicinity, and the evidence indicates that maybe he moved it to the medium. But the best person to answer that question is Mr. Morelli himself. And of course, we can go through the state and ask what was submitted to them. But as you know, that's a relationship between the business owner and the state too. We should be, I hope Alyssa can get us some information on what was reported. One fact though that I have to tell you all though is that there is still an outstanding debt from 2017 and 18.
Right.
Just for the record.
Right, yeah, you did mention that. But I agree with you. We don't necessarily have to go to Annapolis. I mean, we can just go right down on 301 and see if we can ask the owner and see what response we get. That would be I guess that's the prudent thing to do.
We can try both ways and see what, we can contact him and ask him, and then we can ask the city attorney to check with the state.
Can I recommend that we ask him first before we go to the state? Let's give him the opportunity. Let's show that we're good corporate, a good city, and that we try to look out for our corporate relatives, neighbors that are within the city. So we don't really want to appear that we're being overly aggressive or being unsympathetic, whatever word you want to use. In other words, we don't want to look like we're trying to come off as being ruffians.
Yes, sir, certainly.
All right. Any other questions?
I just have one quick question.
Mr. Marcos?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment, Mr. Mayor, for my colleague, Dr. Trout. I go by there quite a bit. They're not Nissans in the medium. I think they're from the other car dealership, so I don't think he has any storage in the median.
I don't know.
So might want to ride by and take a look at that.
But we asked him,
Any other questions?
Yes, one.
Mr. Steff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Matthews, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Overall, in our adopted budget for fiscal year 2020, to what extent are we eating into our reserve fund that year? I hear water being poured. Maybe that's supposed to be poetic for money going from our reserve fund into our general fund. That's quite all right, sir.
We're going to be using 8.9 million of the reserve for the general fund.
So the total amount of money we're using from our reserves to cover our expenses next fiscal year, well, fiscal year 2020, is 8 million?
No, it's just 5.9 million.
Oh, 5.9 million.
Yes.
Okay, cool. 5.9 million.
Well, one note, though, that in the last 2 years, even though we projected revenue shortfalls, we've only used probably 30% of those in actual expenses.
Okay.
We expect that trend will continue.
So even if we only end up using 30%, you know, that's still 2 million, you know, and we used money in our previous year from the reserves to cover our expenses. My second question is to our city attorney. Thank you for joining us tonight. What is the current arrangement that we have with this particular dealer for paying the taxes on which they are in arrears? Do we have an arrangement, and are they compliant?
We do not have an arrangement. We sent a proposed agreement. Mr. Matthews reminded me that this evening that it had been several weeks, and we had no response at all.
So we are working with this individual who owns a car dealership in the incorporated city of Bowie and is supposed to pay these taxes to us, which other dealers are paying. We are making an arrangement with him generously to help him pay back taxes that he has not yet paid the city, and he has not yet replied to our attempt to work out an arrangement for him to pay taxes that he owes us. And yet now he is asking for us to cut his taxes. I find that outrageous, in a word. Thank you.
Any other questions? Before I go back to the motion, I just want to make 2 quick points, and that is, in the presentation last time the dealer was here, he suggested that his business does not own the vehicles until point of sale. So the question I would like to have answered when it comes back from staff is that a valid issue? Can you support that or refute that whether they own the property, whether they should be subject to the tax in the first place? And then maybe from staff, the hang-up I have is I always thought that the intent of this personal property tax on businesses was to apply to things that they use, like computers and phones and whatever, and I don't believe it was ever intended for, you know, for fleets and stuff, because it's just a huge number when you do that. But the question, the legal question is, if the dealership does not own the cars, can they be subject to tax for him? I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, that's an issue between the business owner and the state. It's not a question I can answer. I can't opine on his tax liability. He files, the business owner files what the business owner files, and the state makes a determination of what is and is not included in that number, and presumably if those items were not taxable and the state assessed him on that basis, there would be a tax appeal just like any other taxpayer. If you are assessed a tax that you don't believe you owe, you file a tax appeal. As far as I know, that hasn't been done, but it may have been. It's not a thing in which we would participate or have any knowledge about. Okay. All we can tell you is this is the number the state gives us, and we apply our rules and procedures equitably and equally to all taxpayers.
Okay. All right, if you want to make your motion, Dave, before we make it, we've got 2 meetings in July, and I'd rather not do it on the 1st because we've got a bunch of stuff on that night. If you want to table it until the 8th, if you don't do that, then it has to go over to August.
Oh, we have a meeting on the 8th also?
Yeah, you got 2 meetings in July, the 1st and the 8th. So if you want to, so when you table it, you got to table it to those dates specific.
I'd like to make a motion to table it to the July 8th meeting until such, to allow time for us to obtain the additional information that we've been pursuing.
Your second?
Second.
All right, the motion to table. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. All right, item next is an introduction of a charter amendment. Mr. City Manager or legal staff, whatever. Who's going to handle this? Oh.
Susan. Yeah. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. The Charter Amendment Resolution was a suggestion from our bond counsel And basically, it is just an amendment to clarify the way in which we advertise our bond issuances. Basically, the current amendment requires us to do a newspaper publication for the issuance of bonds. Basically now, that is not the way that bonds are advertised. They normally are advertised through the official statement and through an electronic medium, which investors will grab from this electronic source and pull down that information. So the Bond Council is suggesting that we revise our current amendment so that our current charter amendment, Section 58, to modify the language there that will include us from publishing the sale of bonds through the newspaper media and use the common nomenclature for this time. Certain details of the general obligation borrowing may be determined, provided by a resolution after council first enacts an ordinance. This is another change to the current section. Bond Council has wished that council would consider using a resolution versus an ordinance because it has more flexibility in the time in which the ordinance, the resolution is enacted.
Okay, when would you put this up for action? Just an introduction. I missed that.
This is an introduction, Mr. Mayor.
Just an introduction.
This is the introduction of the...
Yes, so it's an introduction. When would you anticipate this coming for action?
It'll be the August 5th meeting, August 5th.
Okay. Any questions on the introduction? No. Okay. I'm sorry? Do you have a question? Yeah, you have a question, Mr. Wolfley?
Yes, was there a provision to allow for or did I say a negotiated sale as well?
It includes both negotiated and non-negotiated sales.
And currently, we allow only non-negotiated, right?
No, currently, we allow both.
Oh, we do allow both?
Yes,
Okay.
it's just a communication.
Okay.
And the ordinance that's used to expedite the purchase and sale of the bonds.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman?
Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just additionally on that point, there appears to have been a disparity between the published code and the published charter and the version that the Department of Legislative Reference has with respect to a placement of a word "or" with respect to that question. And so one of the things this does is to correct that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so we don't have to do anything on that. All right, last item on the thing is...
Excuse me, Mayor. I need a motion to introduce the charter amendment.
Oh, you need a motion to introduce it?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to introduce the bill, our
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
CAR2?
Yes, I'd like to, a motion, I'd like to move to introduce Charter Amendment CAR-2-19, amending Section 58 of the Charter of the City of Bowie.
Second by Dr. Trout. Any question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Dr. Trout.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask to add an item to our next scheduled business meeting on July 1. And the purpose of which would be to reconsider the referendum referral and the ice rink proposal, especially with that referendum referral. The first speaker that spoke this afternoon really articulated exactly what I was thinking and what I have said to several of my council members and specifically to you earlier today, that it is the job of the council not to send things back to referendum. One, all of us got elected to represent the citizens of the city of Bowie, and they gave us the power of the vote. It just seems unfair, wrong, irresponsible for us to take the power of the vote that they gave to us and send it back to them. That's just contrary to the reason why we were actually elected. So therefore, I would ask that we add an item to our next scheduled business meeting, which is July 1, for the purpose which would be to reconsider the referendum referral and the ice rink proposal.
Second by Mr. Marcos. Are there any questions on the motion?
I have a question on the motion. Prior to our July 1 meeting, is there a willingness for us to have staff to look into the 6 points that I sent via email on Friday and reiterated tonight?
I don't have a problem. If you want to make another motion when we do this, we can do that.
Can we include it in the current motion?
Okay. All right, got a motion on the table.
We have a motion on the table. I would not be in favor of asking that to be added to the current motion. I understand where you're coming from, but the main purpose is to try to make sure that we can get to a point for which you are asking for. We can't do that as long as we have sending this to a referendum. Referendum stops everything.
So question on the motion. So Dr. Trout, can I ask you then, I think I understand where you're coming from, Dr. Trout. What I'm hoping to do is to have as many options on the table as possible for the projects to move forward. We haven't had a serious discussion with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning about ice, and we have a shovel-ready project. They might be willing to work with us, we don't know. We have an offer from a private company to take over our existing rink. He might be willing to work with us, we don't yet know. We might be able to establish a rate structure that helps the new facility to pay for itself and its construction costs. We don't yet know. We need an update on the availability of funds for emergency repairs of the existing ice rink. We don't yet have an update. So I understand what you're saying. I want to make sure that we have answers to those questions, to the things we don't know prior to that July vote.
Well, I hear what you said, but what I'm trying to convey to you is if we do nothing, then we can't entertain what you're asking us to think about. If we pass this motion here, then we have the opportunity to look at all of the things that you asked. But the way we have left this as a result of the meeting 2 weeks ago, we can't do any of those things that you want to do or that you're suggesting we do. We need to take care of taking this off a referendum referral. Once you do that, then all things are open up to consider and look at all those other things that you had discussed. That's the reason for this motion.
Okay.
To look at other activities, because we will, you, myself, Councilman DeFore, we had a lengthy conversation with the Director of Community Services, and the Director of Community Services gave us another idea, which is one of the ideas that you just articulated. So therefore, we can't entertain any of that until we undo what we did 2 Mondays ago. This motion here will do that.
So a question for you, Dr. Trout, on the subject of this motion. If we take away the referendum option, and we look into Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, and they say, no, we can't help you, and we look into Black Bear Sports Group, and they say, no, we can't help you, and we talk to staff about rate structures, and they say, we think that the rates would be prohibitive if we were basically turning a profit on this. And we find out that we don't have enough money to deal with potential emergency situations at the existing ice rink. If we find out all of that, and then it comes back up for a vote, and it's 4-3 against, will we then look at bringing up a referendum again, or will the project just die outright? Because going into our meeting 2 Mondays ago, the reason why referendum came up, if I'm not mistaken, was as a compromise to ensure that this project did not die outright, that it was at least given an option of last resort, which is a vote of our residents, and one that I'm going to insist on, by the way, for courts, for golf, and for all of our future projects. So I ask you, Dr. Trout, if we put this on our July agenda and we choose not to go the route of a referendum and our alternative options don't work, I'm not prepared to raise taxes on residents in the future. I'm just not, and I've been very transparent about that since the day I got on this body. Several of my colleagues feel that way as well. I'm not prepared to support any project or group of projects that results in us having to raise taxes.
With all due respect, Mr. Steve, there's a recommended tax increase already in place, not due to this.
And we've delayed the last two recommended.
That's in place because for 9 years, we haven't raised taxes.
Wait a minute, guys. I have this nostalgic notion that I'm still in charge of the council. We have a motion on the table to do something on the next thing. If you have a question on the specific motion, that's appropriate. Because nothing happens until they get.
You want me to answer his question?
No.
Okay. Because I can answer his question.
Yes, just a quick comment. So I think that we are able to make a friendly amendment to a motion. And so I think that we are capable to amend Dr. Trout's motion to add some other provisions if that's what we decide to do as council. Yeah.
If he's willing to do it.
Yes, if he's willing to do it.
Okay, let me correct y'all with regard to Robert's Rules of Order. And don't believe me, I have a professional parliamentarian. I can call him and he can tell you right now that, first of all, there's no such thing as a friendly amendment. And number two, I don't accept the amendment.
Okay. All right, so you have a motion on the table to have a reconsideration of the rink and the referendum at the July 1st meeting. Okay, everybody understand that motion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Were you? No. Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion then, since that one failed. Mr. Mayor, I would like to motion that our July 1 meeting, staff come back to us with answers to the 6 questions that I asked twice tonight and sent via email last Friday.
All right, moved and second. Is there any question on that motion? Dr. Krause?
You had a question, Dr. Krause?
I have a question on the motion. Okay, on the motion that you just made, the previous motion would have allowed you to do that. I don't think you understood that.
Dr. Trout, you did not accept the amendments on that motion.
You didn't have to accept the amendments. The amendments were not necessary. Mm-hmm. The previous motion I was trying to get across to you would have allowed you to do that. It did not bar you. It did not stop you from doing that. I don't know why you thought it did. It did not do that.
All right.
We had a motion on the table and it's seconded.
All right, enough. All right, you got a motion on the table. I agree with you completely. You got a motion on the table, to ask for that other stuff. Any questions on that motion? I think it's premature to do that until you get to.
I think we are merging both motions.
Huh?
We're merging both motions.
No, that motion died. The motion on the table now, repeat your motion.
My motion right now is to direct staff to, before our next July meeting, reach out to Maryland National Capital Park and Planning for their interest in working with us on the ice rink. Work out to Murray Gunty of Black Bear Sports Group. Inquire whether he's willing to maintain open skate time, what his rates would be, whether he would retain city staff, and to what extent we can hold him accountable to those issues. To ask staff what the rate structure would be at a fully city-funded 2-sheet ice rink at the Church Road location, what the rate structure would need to be to not only cover expenses, but to also cover construction costs. To include council and the ice community in the process of writing the referendum question, so to continue to work on that, but to do so in a manner that's open and transparent. To update us on the availability of funds for emergency repairs at the existing city ice rink, and list.
Oh, and also, I got to ask you a legal question. It's my impression that motion is directly in conflict with what we did 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. Plus,
I don't think.
Plus, Councilmember, the chair of this body has already talked to the Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission, asking what he's done first. Communicate with him.
I have reached out to the chair. We can do all of that stuff. But in my view, my humble view, that by not agreeing to his motion, the operative condition is the vote you took last Friday, which ended the program and put it to referendum.
That's what I was trying to tell you.
And now you're asking to spend an insanely amount of money for no reason.
Wait a minute.
It's ridiculous.
Wait a minute. So my suggestion here is to reconsider his motion, and in that process, it allows you to do that.
That's
But
what
what I'm saying, wait a minute, and legal counsel can advise me if I'm wrong here, but my belief there is, based on the action you took 2 weeks ago, what you're asking to do now is totally in conflict with that, because the operative condition now is you by council action voted to end the project.
That's right.
And send it to referendum.
That's right.
That is your council policy as of right now.
That's right.
Can I ask a question?
You have to amend that in order to do what you want to do.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor?
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question of staff?
Wait a minute, let me say, legal staff, am I close to being right, or am I all wet?
Mr. Mayor, I regret to tell you that in my opinion, you collectively as a body could, I'm not saying you should, have to, must, but you could vote to give staff instructions to collect any information for any reason that you collectively want to do that. I don't think the fact that you took this action that does in fact have consequences for what the status of the project is right now.
If you don't reopen the discussion?
But, pardon me?
What would be the purpose of asking staff to do something?
That is a question for you all, but your legal question to me was, can we make this motion? And you could.
We can just keep spending money for nothing. It's going to referendum, so why it's insane. Why would you request all this staff time for all, that's a list of 10 projects that you're asking them to do.
It's not 10 projects, Mr. Marcos.
So I'm suggesting that we incorporate those questions, but also bring this up for reconsideration, is my consideration.
Well, you can make another motion.
Okay.
My belief is, like I say, my belief here is that, given the current status from 2 weeks ago, you cannot accomplish that without reopening the discussion. So if you want to make if you want to remake his motion,
Let me take a swing at it. Okay. Let me make myself clear this evening. I don't want to see this go to referendum. Period. I do not. Period. I do not.
Why do you keep voting that?
So, well, because I've asked for courts, compromise. I've asked for courts, compromising. So now what I'm asking, if I hear and understand and accept Councilmember Trout, and I hear and I understand Councilmember Esteve. They're both wanting to get to the middle of the road and get this done. I'm asking if we can ask and direct staff to answer the questions that Mr. Esteve is asking of, as well as bringing this back forward to reconsideration, to pulling it from going to referendum. Having those questions asked and stopping this from going to referendum. I think that's the fair and polite thing to do, because more knowledge can help us in making an overall decision what's best for the residents of Bowie. I do believe that referendum would kill it. I do believe that. And I don't want to see it killed, but I do want to see under one roof both recreational facilities.
You want to start the project all over again?
No, I don't want to.
That's what you're saying.
No. Staff came back, our community services director, Sally Hine, came and suggested to all of the council here that if we have ice and courts under one facility. I'm just saying, let's explore it. I don't want to kill the project, and I don't want to see it go to referendum, because it will die if it goes to referendum. I'm just asking to compromise. That's all that I've been silent all evening, and that's what I'm asking for. And Mr. Staff has brought up many good points this evening, as well as Councilmember Trout. I've listened. I want to solve this and move on. Councilmember Trout asked for us to reconsider this and prevent this from going to referendum. I want to work with him and stopping this from going to referendum.
Do you want to change your vote?
Councilmember Esteve has asked that we bring this forward and get some of the questions answered. and seeing how we have a, what, Bear, yes, they've approached the city with a project. We've not heard them all the way through. I think they may offer something that could be beneficial to the community.
But you can't explore that unless you reopen it.
So I want to reopen it.
May I make a...
Yes.
I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding. There is nothing in my interpretation of this that would suggest that we cannot pursue additional information.
Correct.
And that means that you can have a referendum on the books as something that we're going to do. We've committed to having that referendum. There is nothing that precludes us from getting additional information to inform our course of action as a deliberative body, presumably a group that can come to some proper conclusion over the course of time, to pursue additional information that may, in the end, obviate the need for a referendum. We don't have to get rid of the referendum right now. It can be done any time prior to actually putting the referendum to the logistical aspects of putting it on the ballot. So it seems to me that we should be in a position to collect the information we need to inform our decisions and keeping all options open to include at some point in time, if we want to take it off of referendum because we found a perfectly suitable alternative, that we would do so at that time. But in the meantime, it just sits there as an option that was offered as an opportunity to preserve an option for the facility. Madam Councilor, is that a correct interpretation?
Yes, I believe that it is. And I also, I feel compelled to make something clear that a distinction I tried to make clear the last time we had a question on the ballot. It was not this issue. But what you are sending to the electorate is an advisory question. We keep using the term referendum as if the voters are going to make a decision that binds your hands. It does not. What is going to happen is there is going to be a question on the ballot that the voters can express their opinion to you on, and you may or may not choose to act in accordance with that advice. So, and so there is nothing that's stopping you from doing other things while that
is going on,
is coming down the road.
Okay.
So with that in mind, it stands to reason for me that we ought to return back to pursuing the additional information to better inform ourselves. Thank you.
So what is your motion?
So, my motion is, I think, is a second to Mr. Esteves, which I think I already did.
Okay. All right, I'm going to vote no because I just don't think it's right. I think you got to open this thing and start over. Okay, so you got to vote, you got a motion to basically ignore what we've done and ask staff to do all this stuff. That's your motion. All right, moved and second. Any question on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2. Motion dies. You had a motion, Dr. St. Gardner?
Okay. Yes. I move to address the 6 points that Councilmember Esteves has pointed out to city staff and to reconsider the referendum at a later date.
I'm sorry.
And to reconsider the referendum.
Second.
Okay.
Second. Well,
Third.
Okay.
All right. Any questions on that motion? What is it? Question of staff. Repeat your motion, Dr. St. Gardner.
Yes, I move to ask city staff to address the questions that have been sent forth to city staff regarding the proposal and to reconsider the referendum.
And reconsider the project? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Reconsider the referendum.
So you're basically melding the two together?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I was saying all along.
All right.
That's what I said all along.
You have a motion, all right, you have a motion to meld those two things together.
Yes.
To, on July the 1st, put it on the agenda.
Yes.
To do those things and then just consider staff directions on where we're going to go. All right. Everybody understand the motion?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, no, 3, 4, Opposed? 4-3, motion survived. All right, so schedule this for July 1.
Just to be clear,
Time to get the information back from Maryland National Capital Parks.
I hope so. I'll have that answer by, I'm sure I'll have an answer from Park and Planning as to what their potential role might be.
Mr. Mayor.
And I think we all have an idea what that might be.
City manager.
City manager wants you.
Just to be clear, so I intend to, based on what you just said, we're gonna tackle most of these questions. Number 6 there is that a question for us, Mr. Estev, or for you and your colleagues? Bullet number 6.
Number 6, which is to update us on the availability of funds for emergency repairs of the ice rink?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's number 5. Number 6, discuss our council colleagues the path forward. You see what I'm talking about?
Oh, for courts and golf and working with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning?
Is that for us? Is that an internal statement or question?
No, I am directing staff to look into it. I realize that
that's not how it's written. I just want to make sure
Okay.
it's clear.
Right.
The other thing, I intend to bring forward the proposed contract also, the one that was voted down.
That would be
just
part
to be
of
clear.
that would be part of
All right, just want to make sure we got that straight, and we'll work on these questions.
Okay.
I have an answer to one question right now. As far as the ice rink is concerned, the maintenance, there's $48,000 line item in that budget for maintenance that was approved with the 2020 budget. So that's the extent of the amount of money that's available to maintain that ice rink right now. Also, there's $258,000 in another the building fund that could be used, but of course, then we wouldn't be able to operate this facility and maintain it. So what we have is $48,000 set forth. So what would have to occur if at some point the council would have to appropriate more money or amend the budget to add more money for the maintenance of the current ice rink, or when that $48,000 is exceeded, we close the doors. Just for the record. All right, thank you.
That's what I tried to explain to you guys.
All right. That's done. Mr. Mayor Pretend, you want to get us out of here?
I sure do, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move to adjourn. Second.
Moved and second. Any question on that motion? All in favor? Unanimous. Good night, folks.